in Barnet. They suffered stab wounds in the attack and are now being looked after in hospital.
We need to make sure that when people carry out these activities, they feel the full force of the law. People think they can get away with this. The person who firebombed a few weeks ago is out on bail. That's not full force of the law.
This crisis, it's a crisis for all of us. It's not enough to simply say we stand with Jewish communities. Of course we do, but we must show it and act it. And the responsibility lies with each and every one of us, because it is our fight too.
Let's stop importing people from countries where anti-Semitism is the norm. And if our London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, in his infinite wisdom and belief in diversity, thinks that's the sort of diverse view that it's OK to have on the streets of London and the police don't get involved, don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
You keep getting proven right every single time. Jews are not safe in this country.
Well, absolutely. No one can be surprised or feeling shocked that this happened. No Jew certainly is. I mean, we had Zach Balansky last week saying this was just a perceived threat. Well, we can see this isn't any perception. This is real. This is happening on the streets. This isn't just an anti-Semitic terror attack. This is an attack on Britain, on the Western liberal democracy and values.
The first politician that uses the word shocking, I might just go and throttle him, because this is anything but shocking. It's the most expected thing is almost overdue, if you ask me, because, I mean, I just left Israel last week. I thought it would be the last time we were woken up by explosions, but clearly not.
The Jewish community is our community, and their safety is our safety. And we have to make it absolutely clear, robust, strong leadership, and this has to stop, because otherwise it's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Our plan is a complete step change in how we protect communities, moving beyond piecemeal responses to a sustained nationwide effort, one that ensures that people across the United Kingdom can live freely and without fear.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. Welcome to Tuesday. For some unknown reason, I am full of the joys of spring. I slept like a log and I've woken up feeling, well, there's a spring in my step and my hat is at a jaunty angle. No doubt within 5 minutes of doing this job, we'll all be depressed. But let's start as we mean to carry on. Welcome to Tuesday. Welcome, of course, to Talk. It's the home of common sense. That's a phrase everybody seems to be grabbing. We've had it for ages. The home of common sense. It's where your views on the day's news are always welcome. The A-team are here. Christian's still on holiday. Dino survived yesterday. The bosses thought he did a good job. He's back with his fake tan and his chip on his shoulder because he failed to get into Towie. Or The Only Way is Essex. But he's here producing the show. Tommy, taking your calls. As ever, if you want to be on, 0344 499 1000, 0344 499 1000. You can send a voice note. There is a prize today for the first voice note of the morning. I'd custard cream, something like that. Just get it in, so to speak. 87222 for your text messages. Start your message with the word talk. In a tick, the Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party, Matt Vickers, a regular on this show, is here, underdressed, ill-prepared and in trouble from his mother for biting his nails the other day in the House of Commons. That was absolutely classical. It's not a day of brilliant news, but we're going to make it brilliant because it's about you. What do you make of it all? Where do I start on this wonderful Tuesday? Kemi Badenoch, who is still, it seems, one of the most popular politicians. If you listen to any polls, people say she's doing a good job. It hasn't cut through. The Tories still languishing in the polls, but she speaks a lot of sense. Even she's decided to steal my moniker. She's pledged to drive identity politics out of public services, including the police, schools and hospitals. She says, and I quote, "I want more common sense." Here she is, using my phrase. Morning, Kemi.
What we need is equal treatment under the law. Equal treatment under the law tackles racism. But if you decide to start treating groups differently, then all of a sudden accusations become facts depending on who has made them. And when we look at a lot of the guidance which the police are following, it is so confused, so unclear that they are becoming paralyzed. They are becoming less competent because they don't know what the correct thing to do is. And I'm going to be saying more tomorrow. I'll be giving a speech tomorrow explaining what it is I think that we need to do in order to bring common sense back into policing. I did a lot of this work even when I was Equalities Minister. I did not have any operational control over the police. I gave them advice and guidance. They have not followed it, and I think that this is breaking trust in the police if I want to see trust rebuilt, and that's what I'm going to be working towards.
Common sense, peeps. What do you make of Kemi Badenoch? 0344 499 1000. Let's talk about Burnham. Don't forget the Makerfield by-election is on June the 18th. And because we do this job correctly, I'll no doubt in the next few minutes be reading the list of candidates. Yesterday we heard that Makerfield, well, Burnham's quite confident. In fact, he's preening himself and getting ready to have his... Did you see the picture yesterday with him and old... what's the name again? I can't remember. The one that didn't pay her tax. Angela, I'm only joking. She was there in Manchester preening herself. Nice photo next to Andy. Guess what? God, they do my head in, politicians. This morning, he's pledged to make greater use of immigration detention centres. Right. So you've got an answer to the boat problem, have you? Right, you've been in Manchester, where you tell everybody that you've changed people's lives. I would argue that. But yeah, I can't wait to hear this. Andy Burnham, we really should make sure that people are not able to stay in this country if they haven't got a right to be so. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Think back to Blair, mate, and all your cronies. You opened the doors to as many people as was wanting to be here. We need more than words, Burnham. We need actions. Why is it? I'm sorry, I know I'm going to get into trouble for this. Just going to say it, Dina. Get your hand ready over the dump button. I've never really trusted anybody whose eyebrows look like they're about to meet in the middle of their forehead. I'm just saying that. It's not a political comment, it's a personal jibe. 0344 499 1000. We talked yesterday about benefits outstripping tax and defence needing a massive boost. Ministers yesterday ruling out cuts to Britain's benefits budget to help fund defence spending. We're whipping around. We're going to work out how we can make some cuts. Well, I'll tell you what you should start with, the international foreign aid budget, you donuts. This is an extraordinary story, front of the Telegraph today. Terrorists, I'm not even joking, by the way, if you're waking up, hostile states and criminal gangs, including Islamic State and Russia, have received more than £28 billion of your money through aid payments. Now, call me all the things that I get called, but here we are on our knees, no money, and guess what? Let's give some money to the Islamic State. The world's gone nuts. My favourite story, the one I can have a bit of fun with this. I'll be accused of being elitist, but I'm just going to say it. Front page of the Mail, at last somebody tells the truth. Is university a waste of money? Now, far be it from me, who did a really crap university degree at the 57th ranked university in the land, that's Surrey University, where I did history and sociology, which was 5 goldfish, but that's another story, right? I do think there are too many universities, too many colleges of higher education, too many crap courses, and kids end up heavily in debt with no chance of getting a job. In fact, proof now that if you do an apprenticeship, you've probably got more chance. I want a bit of fun this morning. There's a prize, 87222. What's the crappiest university course you've ever heard taking place? Mine was at Keele University, right? I didn't even know it was a university, where you could do a marketing degree which specialised even in the brand Beckham. There you are. So that's going to set you up for life. Here's a man who got a degree. Here's a man who's made it all the way from Woolworths, where he once stacked sweets, to the House of Commons, the Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party. Good morning, Matthew Vickers.
The Prince of Pick and Mix.
Is that what you were?
I loved working at Woolworths. I loved working at Woolworths. It was an awesome, awesome job.
Do you want to hear my embarrassing story?
Go on.
I was 7.
You caught nicking?
Yeah. I was 7, and I nicked lemon sherbet, and she dragged me, Mrs. Kyle, the enemy, as the old man used to call her, by the ear to the manager's office to apologise. You'd probably end up, if you did that to a child nowadays, in court. But it worked, never nicked again. 7 years of age. Woolworths, the open sweet counter.
I'd have seen you coming in the door and I took one look at you and I thought, that is a pick and mix knicker. I'd have had my eyes on you.
A pick and mix knicker. Welcome to the Pick and Mix Knicker Breakfast Show. Did you start on the shop floor?
I started on the shop floor. I love it. In fact, I had a small time working as the big wabbit. I dressed as a giant rabbit and walked around the shop greeting the kids as they came in the store. I worked on the confectionery.
You see, this is where I love this show, right? Because nobody knows what's going to happen. So you couldn't do that nowadays. If a grown man dressed as a bunny and followed children around a sweetie shop, I mean, we're talking massive problems, right? But you started at the bottom, right? And I want to just go actually straight away with this story on the front page of the Mail. I went to university and my daughter, see, this is the way my brain works, Dean. It doesn't work like other people's. Yesterday rang me up. She got a 2-1 at Edinburgh, which is absolutely fantastic, Alice, and I couldn't be more proud, right? I said to her, what's the first? She said, that's the degree where you don't have any social life and you're a bit of a dork. I said, what's 2-1? She said, you're an intelligent person who has a social life. I said, what's a 2-2 that I got? She says, that's no brains and you got drunk the whole time. Which is probably very true.
You up well. I think the thing with university is there's all that bit that comes with it, that life skills and experiences. But actually, in my office, you got all these kids applying for jobs, competitive people, all these youngsters want to work in Parliament. It gives them a nice stamp on their CV. We never take anybody on who hasn't worked in hospitality or retail. If you can't reach to the bottom, you should never be able to reach to the top.
I've got a mate who runs
life skills that they'll never get in university.
I've got a mate who's probably listening who runs the most successful airline parts business in the world. He built it from absolutely nothing. He came from nothing. He pumped petrol at 15, right? Literally. To pay for a bedsit because he was thrown out of his home, and he never has employed anybody who hasn't just got life experience. He just thought, I'll teach the kid. And I think, I'm not, I sound elitist, of course. Surgeons, maybe lawyers, maybe I don't know what, but it's become ridiculous. What I said, that story about Beckham is true. You can do brand Beckham marketing degree. How the hell does that prepare you for life?
Yeah,
ridiculous. Too many, and it sounds like it's too many courses, too many colleges, too many people getting basically stupid degrees.
But you've also got kids coming from all sorts of backgrounds, having to go to university. I mean, when I went to university, nobody before me in my family had gone to university. Dad was a builder, Mum was a hairdresser, and I said, oh, I'm going to university. Like, ooh,
your mother was a hairdresser?
A hairdresser. They were like, oh, it sounds like a clever idea, but do you know it's worthwhile? Well, actually, if your parents are in that mix and they're of that mould, then they know what you should and shouldn't be doing. If they don't, then you trust these institutions that they're delivering you something worthwhile.
Do you think there's too many universities and too many crap courses?
We've got courses that we know, we subsidise people to go on these courses, knowing full well when they get to the other end, the chances of them getting a job in that field are 0 to naught. But then on top of that, you've now got to the point where, A, the loans are a disaster. You've got youngsters who are paying what they're required to pay and their debt is getting ever bigger. But now, worse than all of that, because of what the government is doing to businesses across the country, graduate recruitment is at an all-time low. The chances of you coming out of university and getting that first job are at the lowest they have ever been, an all-time low. That isn't because of the universities, that's because the government is battering businesses. It's hitting them with business rates increases, hitting them with that national insurance rise, it's hitting them with the employment rights bill and all that red tape. So businesses who are looking at the future are going, well, we're struggling to make ends meet. Where should we start? The opportunities we can provide for young people. Those businesses want to give those youngsters a chance, but they can't afford to because the government is battering them. The next generation are missing out because this government wants to pay ever more in welfare, wants to give bigger pay rises to unionised industry, and it's all going horrendously wrong.
Love to hear from you if you did a degree, ended up in debt, or think university is a joke or is the best thing since sliced bread. Love to hear from you. 344 499 1000. Matt Vickers, who proves that you can start in Woolworths as the king of pick and mix and end up on the front bench. If you haven't heard the story about Matt, he made it all the way to the front bench last week. He was on television. His mother, the hairdresser from up north, rang him up and went, Matty, you brought embarrassment to the family. There you were in the middle of a very serious debate, biting your nails.
She's going to call me this morning because I haven't got a suit on. She's going to be, why did you turn up in that studio dressed like a tramp?
What's your mother's name?
Hillary.
Hillary, stop bullying your son, OK? He's a fantastic addition to the show. He looks casual but available this morning. I just think he needs a haircut, and maybe that's your job. Right, let's move on. You've wound them up already. Kemi Badenoch, you heard her, pledging to drive identity politics out of public services, including the police, schools and hospitals. She says it's about time we got back to common sense. Of course, last week, the horrendous story of Henry Novak that dominated quite rightly. Criticism I thought justifiably, about the police's approach. We can talk about pressure from bosses and ideology, but common sense, sorry, if you've got a kid being stabbed, I think those 4 should end up in jail. I don't care if that annoys people. That was gross incompetence. However, lots has been said about, you know, certain police services and other things, schools now. They're not allowing people to use common sense simply because the rules are ludicrous. And that's what Kemi's talking about today, right?
Well, exactly. So she's talking about getting rid of the public sector equality duty. So it's not the Equality Act that guarantees your rights. You can't be discriminated against if you're a woman or if you're Jewish. This is a burden that goes onto the public sector that means they've got to justify it. They've got to create all the tick boxes, all the paperwork to say they are going over and above to ensure there is no difference in the way the treatment. It's ridiculous. But all of this stuff is just bogging down. I mean, the policing thing in black and white, that anti-racism commitment published by the National Police Chiefs Council in March 25 actually says that policing should not be colourblind.
No.
And that it should not treat people equally. If you keep feeding our police officers that, what do we expect them to go out and do?
You know what I'm going to say to you? This hasn't happened in 2 years. I know this is a difficult thing. I'm going to read you 2 things, and you're always good enough to come in. Stephen Northants, talk. The Tories and Badenoch sat on the fence last week over Novak and took pot shots at Nigel and Reform for daring to want this to be a debate. Now they're talking about it. Still got a Liberal underbelly. Never for me, ever again. Sorry. Christina. Like Kemi, but will never vote Tory again. Her back would never agree to leave. Her party would never agree to leave the earshot. They had the chance. Reform UK is the only answer. Now, let's hold that straight on. I watched whatever you. I've been very honest. I voted Reform in the last election. I told you I voted Tory all my life. But we are here. It's a democratic debate thing. In the Commons last week, Farage stood up and said what millions and millions of people in this country, Matt, are concerned about, which is 2-tier policing. Right? Everybody was. I mean, literally, this is outrageous, outrageous. In fact, the MPs behind him will never win their seats again because that's going to go viral. I don't know if you heard me say this, but he came on the show the day after you, and the oldest MP in the House, I won't name him, leant into Farage as he left the chamber and went, and I think this is really important to put to a sitting MP. Looks like you've lost the chamber, Farage, dear boy, but won the country. What's the difference about talking about identity politics a week later than standing up and saying, and I quote, "This is a disgrace the way the police treated this kid"?
Well, the thing is, Kemi isn't talking about it a week later because she was talking about it beforehand because she was in the chamber holding the government to account.
I'm going to sneeze, so you talk.
It's very easy. What was this called? He called for, was it something called rage? I can't remember the language, but it's got to be very careful because he sees them. He called for rage. The answer to this...
I'm going to have this with you because I had it yesterday with Lammy, right? He didn't. He said, I feel rage, right?
No, he said we should. He suggested to the people that they should feel it. The reality is...
Hold on a second. 6 years ago, when that George Floyd, the career criminal, was killed, don't like how he was killed, but he was a career criminal, had a knife to a pregnant woman's belly. Fact. You weren't in Parliament. There was a minute's silence. They all took the bleeding knee. And I got a quote yesterday from Starmer going, I felt fury and anger. I'm sorry. I agree with Nigel should probably have said, and I quote, he didn't condone the violence. He probably should have said that. But I don't think saying I felt rage is going to say that you are then accused of people taking to the streets.
Didn't he suggest people should feel cold rage? Nobody wasn't outraged by what they saw. Kemi had been talking about it.
Are you telling me that you genuinely think that Nigel Farage and Reform wanted to get people out in the streets last week by saying that?
They talked for cold rage. I think what should have happened is what Kemi had been doing before that, what I'd been doing in the chamber before that. Being in government is about detail, it's about facts, and it's about outcomes. Anybody can start tweeting something or making a press conference at 8 a.m. and just responding how they feel in their gut. That is a thing. That is a thing. But actually, if you want to deliver change, if you want to have a real informed outcome, you've got to deal with this. In June 25, after this thing had come out in March 25, saying the policing shouldn't be colourblind, I was in the chamber calling out. I've called it out month after month after month. Kemi was calling it out.
I will give Matt
It's not
Vickers
about what
credit
you do
if
when
you
you're
didn't...
pissed off afterwards. It's about what you do to change the thing. Is he going to turn up to work next week and vote against it? Is he going to do anything about it? Is he going to do the detailed work required to change it?
Okay.
Or does he just want to tweet about it? That's the difference.
So the criticism from your side of Farage and reform is it's headline grabbing, but we're dealing with detail. Is that what you're saying?
You need the detail. You need to do the homework.
I will back you up. We played the clip last week. You did stand up a year ago and say this is utterly ridiculous what the police are doing.
There's about 3 or 4 clips out there of me on the record,
biting
in the
his
house,
nails.
probably biting my nails.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with lots of these things. You've got to have done the homework to be able to deliver a result. The Labour Party arrived without any sort of plan.
But you do understand, if we're talking about it, and I'm not arguing for Nigel Farage, I'm having a debate with you because I like you very much, but the truth of the matter is that you lose a degree of respect, or not even respect, of the moral high ground, because you had 14 years. Not you, but your party had 14 years to make sure this crap didn't happen. And it is. And so people who have had enough of Starmer and had enough of the Tories at the end are going to go like this. This is what they're going to say. They're going to go, well, maybe there isn't detail, and maybe Farage does jump up and down, and maybe they haven't got any experience. But frankly, right now, could it... Watch the Greens run Gorton and Denton. Could it be any worse than the last 10 years that we've been dealt? That's what I think the big problem for the uniparties is, because they've both failed in the public's perception, and thus they are no longer at the forefront of people's minds.
It's very easy to issue a press release. It's very easy to issue a tweet.
Well, what is she doing today, Kemi? What is Kemi doing today? She's making a speech about identity politics and common sense. You could as well...
Informed by barristers. It talks about removing that public sector equality duty. This work isn't something... She didn't go, hey, well, I'm knocked off. Yeah. Rage,
sorry, has she suddenly come from what? I'm knocked
She did
off.
the homework.
Okay.
This is informed by the work of barristers, and there's an outcome. And the other thing is, you keep talking about these 14 years. I wasn't a minister. Kemi wasn't the leader. But the Home Secretary...
She was the Equalities Minister. She was in the Cabinet.
The Home Secretary at the time, you could vote for her. You could vote for reform. She's changed her colours, as has Robert Jenrick. These people are... Why all of a sudden have you changed your rosette if you got clean hands and you had nothing to do with the past? These people served in the highest rankings of government. Nadeem Zahawi and co. The choice at the next election...
Yes?
...will be between Rage or Kemi.
That's a cheap shot.
Well,
that's ridiculous.
That's the choice. You can get the guy who does the tweets, who gets the headline.
Are you telling me that you don't believe Reform or the Greens or other parties have any substance to what they say?
I think we're doing the homework. I think it's very easy to come up with the headlines, but you've got to do the homework.
Then explain to me why. Then explain to me why. And I have acknowledged that Kemi Badenoch has come up with some really good stuff, and she does very well on a personal level. Why is your party, with respect, still that far back? They're not on the starting grid, mate. You know that. They're not.
No.
Because of 14 years of failure.
Because you journalists talk about 14 years. When Robert sat in this seat, whatever day he comes in, when Suella's sat in this seat...
She's never sat in that seat.
Do you ever interview Nadeem Zahawi in that
Twice.
crowd? Well, whenever they turn up to answer your questions, you ask them about the 14 years.
Absolutely.
You can talk to me about Kemi's plan.
And in fact, they're nodding at me. I absolutely will. The thing about Robert Jenrick, you want to take me on about that? He at least had the balls to resign from the government. I'm being completely serious.
He was the Secretary of State.
I saw what was going on in the Home Office. If you're tuning in, we're having a bitch. It's brilliant. I love this. It's such a boring day and it's going well. He said, I don't agree with the government's policy to immigration, and walked out. I know what people say about Robert Jenrick. Suella Braverman says, and I quote, I came back into government with Rishi Sunak because he promised, and that's why I took the job, and he let me down. And I've asked those questions. I say to every single politician...
Legal migration started going down when Cleverly took the helm. After the Suella surge, or whatever we want to brand it as. These people are my friends, actually, but the reality is to think that you change the colour of your tie, your rosette... But
we weren't talking about them. We weren't talking about them. I asked you,
right,
well,
talk about me.
really well.
Talk about me. And
is it frustrating to have a politician as your leader who's doing well, but that the party won't cut through because they are still, as Labour are, by the way, very much so, probably more, a toxic brand?
So Kemi and I both say the Conservative governments of the past made mistakes.
Yes.
That is not going to stop us putting forward the offer that we think this country needs. The choice at the next election will be between...
The public aren't very forgiving, though, are they?
Well,
not instantaneously.
They're not, but half the tent's changed the colour of its tie, so we should think about... But at the next election, in a few years' time, there's going to be a choice. There's going to be a Conservative Party led by Kemi Badenoch. You don't have to agree with everything she says.
Right.
But but you know where she stands. She's going to be on the side of hard-working people. She is committed, no ifs, no buts, to reducing the size of the welfare state, the benefits, so that hard-working people can get the tax cuts and know that the money they pay in tax goes on the things they want it to be spent on. She's not going to be on the side of the unions. She's not going to be on the side of welfare claimants. She says that the welfare system should be for people who really, really need it.
So going on your premise about Braverman and Jenrick, and I don't know where that came from, you would say that a lot of what the Tories failed to do, she disagreed with.
I think she said...
Why did she stay in the cabinet for 6 years then?
Well, sometimes people resign. Sometimes they find out they're not going to be there much longer, and then they choose to resign. It's history at the end of the day.
This is the biggest argument we've ever had. This is brilliant.
The reality is, Kyle, at the next election, people are going to have the choice to choose Kemi, whether it be on high streets and getting rid of business rates for small businesses, whether it be on reducing the welfare state. We're not like your reform crew who don't know where they are.
It's not my crew.
They don't know where they are on the two-child cap. 1 minute they're voting for it, the next...
accept that.
Kemi is firm. She's got a plan. She's sticking to it.
If she's firm and she sticks to a plan, can you see it cutting through in time?
Do you know what? In 2021, no one knew who Keir Starmer was. He won the Hartlepool. He lost the Hartlepool by-election. He was considering quitting. There's a long way to go, and the reality is, it's not about being popular. It's about putting forward an offer to the country that we know can work, can make sure that those youngsters can get jobs, that people who are driving to work this morning at daft o'clock and are going to graft all day get value for money out of their taxes. That's the offer we're going to put forward. She's the woman to deliver it, and I'm backing her all the way.
6:25. This is brilliant. What a great start. 0344 499 1000. It's your telephone number, your text, your voice notes. And just keep it. Matt Vickers and I are going to continue bitching during the ad break. Back in 3. Morning, Boz.
Morning, JK and the breakfast team. Travelling Boz here. Kemi Badenoch comes across quite well, what she says. But like I said, they did have 14 years in power. Not her so much. But I'll tell you what, if push comes to shove nearer the time, needs to do a little pact there with Reform and Nigel, because it's the only way it's going to go forward. Anyway, good show.
We are going to remove all forms of DEI from policing. We will also, and we're the only, the Labour Party have not committed to this, the Tory Party have not committed to this. Reform are also taking the view that we would immediately ensure that nobody gets to carry deadly weapons on our streets unless you're law enforcement. So I don't care what religion you are. I don't care how ceremonial, in quotes, your dagger is.
So you would
not get to carry. There will be no religious exemption.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Me and me partner in crime, Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party, have had a right old bitch fest this morning. 0344 499 1000, all around the fact that Kemi Badenoch has, well, will today say that she's pledging to drive identity politics out of public services, including the police, schools and hospitals. She used the phrase common sense. He says we're about ideas. The Reform lot, it's all about back of the fag paper and shouting and whatever. Mick, my family still live in Borough, and I can confidently say that Matt Vickers is reform in sheep's clothing, and he never did his homework. Julian, I like Matt Vickers, but if he thinks the Tories have changed because they've got a new skipper, he's deluded. It's the same old woke, watery crew, exposed again over attacking Farage's heartfelt words in the House, mirroring all decent people. That's why they're tanking in the polls. Great show. Tom, good morning. Morning, chaps. I was a lifelong Tory and voter, but they failed me dreadfully. I won't be voting for them ever again. I'm a Reform member and supporter and honestly believe that Nigel is the last hope we've ever had. Tom Stewart in Morpeth. Do you know Morpeth in Northumberland?
I do. Wonderful
God's country. God's country, Northumberland. My last point is I'm an alarm clock Brit. I've been up since 5 a.m. I left the house at 5:45 and I won't be home until 8 tonight. I'm paying taxes to pay for lazy gits to live a life on benefits. I've frankly had enough. Charles is in Thailand. Oh, yes. I like your guest, Matt Vickers, but frankly, he's dreaming. The Tories will be lucky to finish third at the next election. 14 years of being bloody useless and delivering nothing will take the public at least 2 parliaments to forgive him. That's from Charles Kemp. Morning, Jez. Guy in Scotland. Kemi waits for Nigel to say lets him takes the flak and then speaks after the dust settles. Jez, the MSM keeps telling us the Kemi bounce is real, but it's more like a deflated beach ball deflating in front of the nation. Nobody is listening or cares what the bloody Tories say, although we like Matt. Matt, just look what university did for policing, thanks to Theresa May. Oh, my God. Right, we're moving on. You've done... Right, have you seen this story? I have to do this. We talked about it at the Daily Mail. University, a waste of money. You made a really salient point. Graduate recruitment at an all-time low. That's because this government has destroyed businesses with NI and workers' rights, and there aren't the jobs. But it's being proven, Matty, that going to university, a shocking study today showing half of debt-ridden graduates earn less than the average wage 5 years after leaving, even if they can get a job. We asked for... some of the most pointless degrees ever on text 87222. Morning, Jez, you old chuffer. What's an old chuffer? Make me sound like a train. I believe back in the 90s there was a kite flying degree, says Paul and Hitchin. What, a BA in kite flying? What the Jeff in Thurrock. Do you know where Thurrock is?
Yes. It's your party's heartlands, isn't it, Thurrock?
What? Sorry, what is my heartlands? You mean Essex? Where real people... What's it? Sorry, my heartlands. I am an independent radio journalist presenter who... Yes, I voted for reform, but I'm sure I could be... Just shut up.
You'll grow out of it. You'll grow out of it.
Oh. Unlike you, who won't grow out of biting his fingernails. Morning, Jez. You can study for a Bachelor of Music or Bachelor of Arts in Bagpipes at the University of Glasgow. A Bachelor of Arts in Bagpipes, Bill in Cheshire, Duff degrees. How about business management with dance at Liverpool's Hope University? And Joanna in Salisbury says, the most useless course must be the London School of Economics. They offer a degree in economics. That's what Rachel Reeves says she got done. There's also a Taylor Swift degree you could get at university. Did you go to university?
I did.
Where?
I did several degrees. I went to one of those universities. You're probably going to slip, but actually it's very successful. I went to Teesside University and I went to Leeds to the College of Law.
Why? What did you do? Did you do like a master's and everything?
I did, yeah. I did my LPC so I could go on and become a trainee solicitor.
Did you?
And I did business management, yeah.
I went to the worst university in the world, Surrey University. Where I did history and sociology. Sociology was studying 5 goldfish. I got a degree that was completely useless. I had a fantastic time, and I wouldn't have swapped it for the world. But 40 years later, I think it's a joke.
So bizarrely, interestingly,
and I'm being completely honest. There's not hypocrisy. It's true. I think it was ridiculous.
Well, I think bizarrely, actually, Teesside University, very good visual, digital stuff, and they have got. You will think this is a ridiculous degree. But actually, it is a hugely successful degree. So they do a lot of stuff on video games.
Yeah.
And Teesside is on the map on video games, but actually, it's a very lucrative business. So when people grow up going, oh, I want to go work in computer games, in Teesside, they actually lead the way on the computer game stuff, and they create huge, huge revenues from doing such, supporting the computer game industry, which is bigger than I ever thought it was. I'm not really a gamer. But yeah, massive.
I imagine you actually are. I imagine you sit at home bashing your mouse, no?
Bashing my mouse.
I didn't mean that as it came out, to be honest. Morning, Rob.
Morning, Jez. Good show as always. Off to a cracking start. Now going to work. Just like to say, I never went to college, never went to university. Left school at 16, went straight to work for a builder. I grew up on the family farm, so I already had a good rounded idea of what graft was. Now, I went all the way through my life up to this current point, over 40 years of hard graft. Don't throw sickies, turn up all the time, do your job, get paid. I've bought my own house, I've raised 2 kids, paid all my bills and all my taxes. And there you go, that's how you do it. Stuff universities, they're full of purple-eared, vegan, woke loonies.
Purple-eared, woke, vegan loonies are at university 25 to 7. Welcome to Tuesday's Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on the home of Common Sense. Matt Vickers, my partner in crime, is here. 0344 429 1000. Morning, Jez. Great back and forth with you and Matty. I see what he's saying. But as much as Kemi in PMQs, I won't vote for them again, as I just don't trust them to do as they say. I think it's time for a new party to try at least. They deserve a go. Nobody could do worse than the rest of you lot put together.
So I think the reality is, you know what people want from a government? They want a government
honesty,
that is
action.
Well, they want a government that is on the side of people who do the right thing. Actually, they want people to be able to go and get a job, and part of that is about being fiscally responsible.
Yeah, I agree
it's
with
about
this.
spending money as it's meant to be spent.
Yeah.
And the one thing you've got guaranteed from Kemi is that she is on the side of working people. She's very strong on benefits.
Yeah.
When it comes to we're talking about university tuition fees. Who is it that's come forward and said we are going to scrap poor value degrees, and we're going to spend poor value, the ones that don't give people.
I
we
agree.
know
I agree.
university. We can literally map it now and say which universities are people leaving, which courses are they leaving, and not getting a job. Why are we sending them?
We're going to move on to foreign aid, but I've got to read this from Ian. This is interesting. Ian, he said he was tempted to go on the kite flying degree years ago because it was with a full grant and there were no strings attached. Boom! Nobody can possibly say this isn't fun this morning. JK, I'm a big fan of Suella. You obviously don't like Suella, bro.
I actually get on with Suella.
When in government, she was never backed by Sunak and is a great asset to reform. Tory party loss and reform game. Margaret in Birmingham. Bring the wonder of Woolies back, she says.
Yeah.
Morning, JK and Matt. If Matt has several degrees, if he leaves politics, he could become a thermometer. Very good, you lot. 8722.
They're on it.
They're on it. I just want to talk about something that I think you would completely agree with. This drives me and my listeners and viewers insane. We are in a situation where this country has the highest taxation since time began, where our public services are creaking, where our borders are open, where our police seem to protect criminals, not victims, where our National Health Service is on its arse, where, frankly, in a minute, if we believe what we hear, this government's going to go to the International Monetary Fund on bended knee, as Labour governments always do, and go, we're skint, we need to be. So, front page of the Daily Telegraph today, Matty, billions in aid cash handed to terrorists. This is an extraordinary story. Basically, I mean, how do I tell you this? Hostile states like Russia and the Islamic State, places abroad, £28 billion, peeps, of taxpayers' money through aid payments. This is a secret government report. Now, I am not going to throw 14 years at you, but this is the sort of thing that drives alarm clock Brits mad. You just heard Rob there saying, I go out, I do my stuff. Apart from the fact that we seem to give money to people who give nothing back, people who come into this country, we're giving foreign aid. I remember years ago, maybe before COVID, or certainly I think when austerity was happening under Cameron, somebody gave me a statistic which left me cold at that point. There are 33 or 34 government departments. I think there were 34 at that time. And each one, bar one, suffered a huge cut during austerity, and all of those cuts affected the British public. The only one that saw an increase was foreign aid. One thing I know about the British public is they've always done the right thing, but they are up to their back teeth, and that is an absolute travesty. When I hear about black holes and cuts, 28 billion to the Islamic State and Russian sources and whatever save the spotted owl in Afghanistan. It's a joke, Matt. That's a joke.
It's shocking, and the bit that makes it devastating is you know that those people who are going to work this morning are paying record levels of tax.
Yeah.
They're paying more in, and then they see something like this and see money that is... There is no defence for it. There is absolutely no defence for money that is being thrown to causes like that. The reality is aid, is there opportunities? You know, when a country floods, when you see some of the things that go on, natural disasters, wars, should there be help internationally? But should it be going to causes like this? I mean, wasn't it... What country was it that had, like, some alternate Spice Girls, and it turned out we were funding their the support?
I always remember,
like, ridiculous spending of public money.
Can you get me the clip from Trump when he stood up and he said... this is ridiculous. And he said, and we give 60 billion to Lesotho. Where is Lesotho? Do you know, it's a great story about... See if you can find that. There is a point now, I think, where hard-working Brits, the silent majority, are going... I didn't even know about this, but we've obviously done this for years, and it's no longer justifiable. And in fact, we're struggling, and it's wrong. And I think politicians, not you, but politicians have always gone, yes, but we're the moral leaders of the world, and we're skint. We're skint. And
charity begins at home.
Absolutely.
Particularly when you're skint.
Absolutely. Sean, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby here. You know, listening to Matt, I like Matt, but this time he's wrong. I like Kemi, but what will happen is, as we've seen before, if the Tories got in, the Wets will start running the party and nothing will happen. Now, if my choice is between the wet Tories, even wetter than wet Labour, and wage reform, then I choose wage, because that's something we haven't tried yet. Great show, mate.
You can answer that, my friend, Matt Vickers.
Well, you know what the situation is in this country? Our economy is being driven off a cliff. 19% more people unemployed. Graduate recruitment, we've talked about.
Yeah.
Graduate, an all-time low. Businesses going to the wall at the fastest rate since the world economic crash. The country is in turmoil. Young people not getting the opportunities to just get a job, live a life, provide for a family.
Buy a house, have a family.
That is devastating. You know what? It's only getting worse. This is what Labour does every time it gets in office.
Well, we know that.
It causes unemployment to go through the roof. And what it requires to fix it is someone who's going to come in and balance the books. Not promise the earth, not promise to nationalise things, not promise increases in benefits, not promise things that can't be delivered.
Prudent fiscal sense.
Yeah.
Right, stand by, ladies and gentlemen. I've had a drum roll. Da, 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 da. Do you know Dan Bourne from Suffolk?
I don't.
Morning, Jez. I like Matt and I like Kemi, and I do keep an eye on the Tories, and to be fair, right now, to me, they sound the most sensible.
Yeah.
One man in Suffolk, and seriously, Matt Vickers is literally
one sensible, informed man.
JK, can you ask that devious toe rag Matt Vickers? He didn't say that at all, I added that. What their policy is on immigration, since most people are fed up with it now, and in 3 years there'll be 3 million more. That's the issue. Nothing else matters without that issue being resolved. Great show. I left the UK 18 months ago because the Tories messed it up for me. Well, what is the policy on immigration now?
So quickly back to economy and jobs. So the reality is, whatever was going wrong when the Tories got kicked out, the bit that people have forgot, we had near record levels of employment. People could get a job, earn a wage, provide for the families.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in for a reason. I know when the Tories left office, we were the second most successful G7 nation, which makes an absolute more disgraceful mockery of the fact that your party got so bogged down in sacking people and recrimination that they let this shower in. That's another thing that we haven't mentioned today. And I love having these debates here. A lot of people are angry with the Tories, right? And it probably wouldn't perhaps be as great as it is, but what they've allowed to be in place has, I think, exacerbated the feeling of anger towards your party.
Well,
I really believe that.
Part of the problem is we got to the end, we fought like cats and dogs.
Yeah.
We tore strips out of each other. We showed the world the worst of the things that we were doing. We didn't talk about the fact that people were getting jobs, people had lives.
I accept that.
They hadn't for many years. The economy was actually on the up. Things were going rather positively. What was it? Oh, we were on about the borders as well. So borders. We've done the homework. We've got a borders plan. We've committed, every MP in the Conservative Party is committed to leaving the
Even
ECHR.
the Wets?
Yep.
The Wets will leave the ECHR?
We have this is now our policy position. We've voted for it in there. We've also said that we should have a cap on the number of people who come here legally. We've done the homework, but we haven't tweeted about it or done a press conference. We've actually got a document prepared by some of the greatest legal minds in the country that tells you what we will do, why we will do it, and how we will do it.
You really believe in Kemi Badenoch, don't you?
I really believe, and do you know what? It would be very easy if I wanted to guarantee I was getting elected next time. I'd get one of them turquoise ties. They're quite in fashion with my lot. But I believe that we need somebody who is going to balance the books.
Okay.
Who's going to tell the country the hard truths that actually we need to reduce spending. We need to reduce welfare.
I'll say this to you, not just because you're a mate. I'll say this to you. You come here every week and you do this and you believe in it, and that deserves respect. And we don't have to agree about all things, but you believe it, and people will make their judgment. To a break. Lots to come still. Chris, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. We all know what will happen if we vote to get Kemi Badenoch as the next Prime Minister. Wets in the party, even if they signed up to everything she said, won't let her do half the things that this country needs to be done. And after about 2 years, they'll get rid of her and they'll install one of their puppets from one of their One Nation branch, and we'll all be back to what we had before, and we don't want it. Matt Vickers, bless his heart, he's trying, but he hasn't realised the Tory party are finished, never to be elected again.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Can I just point out, Matt Vickers, on the Talk app, they do a bit with weekly best bits. I've never been on it. It's true. Never been on it. 6:45, we're live across the UK. The Talk breakfast show is on Home of Common Sense. So much going on. I've got some breaking news. We don't want to egg this situation, but we've had lots of messages about this. A bit of breaking news, and what I've got so far. A situation last night in North Belfast. An arrest has been made after a man was seriously injured after being attacked with a knife. In a statement, the police service of Northern Ireland said officers were called to Kinnard Avenue around 10:30 last night. The injured man was taken to hospital. They confirmed another man was arrested in connection with the incident and taken into custody. I'm not going to tell you too much more about that, but there's lots to do with that story that will come out. Just to say there's an incident last night, an arrest after a man was injured, having been attacked with a knife in Belfast. Kemi and Matt should cross the floor to reform rather than disappear into political oblivion like Labour. Phil in Coventry, I've listened to 40 minutes of your show, the latest story about giving billions to the Islamic State. Go on, tell me once more this country isn't finished. I'm retiring in a month's time. I'm paying no more tax. I'm going to leave. I hate you all. I added that. Guy says, foreign aid is funding the invasion then.
So you'd hear there are people out there who'd argue that foreign aid, if spent in a certain way, would prevent people leaving some of these countries. The reality is we can't afford to throw away money like they've been thrown away. You've got to cut the foreign aid.
I completely agree. I would like the government or the Prime Minister to stand up, or even Kemi Badenoch, right, talks about common sense. I'd like her to stand up and say, we are giving £28 billion to ludicrous things. This was Donald Trump maybe a couple of years. This is bloody brilliant. Let's just take you back to when Trump went the money that we're giving. Have a watch, have a listen.
$40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million.
Would you honestly, love him or hate him, he's dead right, isn't he? I mean, it's ludicrous, and that is what we are doing in this country. Sheddy, Nathan in Perth says, Matt Vickers speaks a good line. What he's just said about immigration sounds great, capping this, stopping that, but he's forgetting. We've heard this all before, and they were all lies. We won't trust the Conservatives ever again. Oh, you're trying, though, aren't you?
Do you know what? Sometimes you've got to stay the course. You can't just jump around. If you think the right thing to do is to balance the books, to make sure people can go out and get jobs, you've got to stick by it and you've got to do what you think's in the best interest. Very easy to change the colour of your tie, but...
Ooh, he's got a thing. I'm going to get him a little turquoise tie that his mum can see him sat in. Right, ministers, this is interesting. Yesterday, the Sarushi Sheriff, I think it was, the ex-head of NATO forces, came out and said that unless we spend more on defence, we're basically screwed and it could cost us in blood. Ministers yesterday ruling out cuts to Britain's benefits budget to help fund defence spending. Apparently, Keir Starmer rushing around Whitehall trying to get money to save to sort of cement a legacy, which is screwed anyway, I'd like to point out. I think, and I know you probably go, you're doing it again, I think that successive governments have just attacked the defence budget for a number of years under the premise of we're in the Cold War, and it has been shown to be the most ludicrously bad decision. I think it's a disgrace. I think we're an island. Starmer had this review. He still won't implement that. Before that, I know Ben Wallace was arguing for more. It became an easy cut, and we can tie it into the discussion this morning about international aid. We're giving away 28 billion quid, and yet we have got an army that's less than the numbers of people that have broken into this country in the last year. That's a disgrace on anybody's standards.
Yeah, at no point, everybody, for years and years, people have said, oh, we live in an increasingly dangerous world. Actually, if you open the pages of the newspaper for the last 6 months, it doesn't take any spelling out. We are living in a ridiculously dangerous world where we've got, is it something like 70 armed conflicts are underway across the globe at the moment. It's like off the charts. The threat from China, the threat from Russia.
So it was a mistake by lots of ex-governments to cut back.
There should definitely be more spent on defence. I could go back and I'd pull out the facts about what we were spending on and where we were getting to, and the investment in tech, etc., etc. But as it stands today, we need to reach 3% of our spending on defence. We need to have that. So
that was why I stopped. That's why I lost it finally with Sunak. Do you know that? Do you know why I lost it with Sunak in the end? Because it was only during that bloody election campaign, 2 weeks to go to voting day, we need to raise the GDP from 2.5 to 3%. I thought, you've been there for 2 years, mate. I don't give a damn what anybody tells me. I would have thought the government's first responsibility is to safeguard its people and its nation, and they haven't. Successive governments have not done that, and it's come back to bite us.
You need to get to 3%.
Yep.
You also need to bring... Have you seen this defence investment plan? So the armed forces are waiting to see what capital is going to be spent on. The government promised it would come out in autumn. Here we are in June. Hasn't arrived. But there you go. You know that wonderful woman who's got all the plans and all the answers and stands by what she says?
Who's that?
She said... Kemi has said...
Sorry, I thought you meant Margaret
Kemi has said that we should axe the two-child cap and spend that money putting more troops into our armed forces is the right thing to do.
I'd stop foreign aid. Here's a point. Roger from Wales. If you're paying billions to foreigners in benefit, isn't that bloody foreign aid? That's an interesting one. 28 billion in aid cash handed to terrorists and Islamic State. Extraordinary. Morning, the lovely duo we're now called, Jeremy and Matt. Can you confirm, please, you will remove the need for a degree to work in the civil services if elected and therefore allow soldiers to become police? Not every nurse needs a degree. Michael, alarm clock Brit.
Entirely. You know what? People should go in with the skill set that they need. But actually, it's bigger than that. We don't just need to remove the entry of civil servants. We need to remove some civil servants. We have way too many civil servants. Since the pandemic, the thing grew.
Why didn't you get rid of them then when you were in power?
Kemi's got a plan. She'll tell you how many she's getting rid of.
Margaret Harbour says that Reform is living rent-free in poor Matt Vickers' head, slagging them and the millions who voted for them. I'm not sure it's the answer. Caroline, when the last election was on a few weeks ago, even using my Zimmer frame, I swear I was faster than a bloody greyhound getting to the polling station to vote Reform. The con artist Conservatives are never for me. She's going to attack you with a Zimmer frame. I do love the fact you come here and you do this, and I mean that. 0344 419 1000. Burnham. We'll play the list of candidates, make a field by-election, 18th of June. Take your pick. We're in Purdah, whatever. Burnham has pledged today to make greater use of immigration centres as he eyes a potential challenge to Starmer if he wins the by-election. So now the self-styled saviour of the North thinks he's got an answer. Now, here's the thing. You've spent the last 50 minutes saying that all Reform ever do is come up with sound bites. That's a bloody sound bite by Andy Burnham. Where's the detail?
Well, the thing is...
You didn't sort the boats. The Labour Party haven't sorted the boats.
He's trying to get
through... I could sort the boats.
He's trying to get through one election today. which is a by-election, and he's trying to appeal to the people of Makerfield. On the 19th of June, he'll probably change his tune again. This is a guy who was on about rejoining the EU. He's changed his mind, but he'll probably be back on it. There's this other story running today about the fact he said that the use of wasteful consultants is indefensible, and it's turned out he spent 27 million on them. The guy is all over.
27 million on what?
On wasteful
consultants. Get that story, Dino. We've been put in our place by Matt Vickers. What's the matter with you, man?
This guy is going to be just like Starmer. He's going to be flip-flopping all over. There's going to be U-turns left, right and centre. He doesn't stand for anything. He just wants to get elected. And he's got a load of Labour MPs behind him who just want to spend more and more and more.
Why are they behind this man?
Because they think it's the meal ticket. Do you remember when they were asked by Keir Starmer to vote to remove the winter fuel from our pensioners?
Yes.
When they were asked to vote against the grooming gangs inquiry, when they were asked to vote to basically do away with our farming sector and put all our farmers out of work. When all these things came forward, they didn't stand up to Keir Starmer. The one time they decided to stand up to him was when they saw those local election results and realised they were going to lose their jobs. They now see him as a meal ticket that's going to get them through the next election. They're willing to bend over and take whatever it takes to get them through.
He's not going to get them through the next election.
He's their best chance.
Can you get me, please, the recorded list of the Makerfield candidates so I do my job in a correct way? Morning, guys. What's the bloody point in spending any more money on defence when the enemy can just walk in or float in on a bloody dinghy? That's a very good point, isn't it?
And we're building them a super embassy in central London, you know?
Jeremy and Matt. Guyby says, I agree with Matt. Kemi has a plan, whatever you and your reform lot say. Oh, that's two people here.
What was he called? What was he called?
Guyby. Hi, Jez, I'm 77 and I wouldn't trust either Labour or the Tories to run a raffle, never mind this bloody country. In my opinion, only Nigel of the Reform Party can put the great back into Britain, Terry and Slough. Oh, there's a sharp intake of breath there from Matty Vickers.
Change the colour of your tie, all is forgiven. It's fine.
You know what you're getting for Christmas, don't you? You're getting a turquoise tie. The story that's getting you this morning is the fact 28 billion is being given. Also, university. Go to university, get a UCIS degree and end up not getting a job. Morning, Martin. Morning, Mark.
Martin from Cambridge here. I didn't go to university or college, but if I had, I wish I would have studied gender studies. It's a 5-minute course. There's only 2 genders, XX, XY. So it would have been first class honours. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Great. Yeah, that's good. I heard a joke the other day. It's just a bit of fun, and it said about the genders, and it said X and Y is male, and Y and X is female, and Y is Delilah. Oh, how rubbish was that? Jez Burnham has wasted 4 million taxpayers' money on his vanity projects, this guy. Of course, the cost of the mayoral election in Manchester. I think he probably thinks that he's got it all in front of him, but I'm not altogether sure he has. We haven't got much time left. We've got to get out of here at 57:10. I'm completely on this. I've not got a problem. What can I say? I love having you on. You genuinely believe that Kevin Badenoch's the answer, don't you?
She is the answer. She's also a woman with a plan on the side of working people, and she's responsible with our finances. She's going to get the job done.
Listen, really, really grateful as ever to have you on, despite the dress down. But I think you look good. I thought you were less sort of...
We'll see what my mum makes of it when I get
there. Well, here's the thing. She's not your mum. I'm joking. Mummy Vickers, let us know. Thank you, Maddie. We'll see you next week. Right, a list of Makerfield candidates. This is a public service announcement. Jake Austin stands for the Liberal Democrats, Count Binface for his own party, Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham, of course, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer for the Independents, Ed Gemmell, the Climate Party, Paul Gould, the Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, the Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin the EU, and Michael Stanley, the Conservative Party. That's your list of candidates.
David Lammy says there is no two-tier policing in this country. What do you think?
I disagree with that. I think there is two-tier policing, but also we're seeing this problem across our public services. And in the case of the police, we know that there's a race action plan which says that they should treat ethnic minorities differently. I think that is the very definition of two-tier. And what they're being taught to do is prioritise racism and not being seen to be racist above protecting the public from harm.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I've got some breaking news here. The Crowborough Army Training Camp could hold male asylum seekers all the way until 2030. Good. After the Home Office claimed it would...
Today, another taxpayer...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, my friends. Welcome along or welcome back. Just gone 7 o'clock Tuesday, the 9th of June 2026. The sun's rising and the rain's about to start. Anyway, welcome along to the Home of Common Sense. It's the show where your views on the day's news matter to us, and as ever, 3 ways of getting hold of us. You can phone or you can leave a voice note on the only number you should need to know. 0344 499 1000. Your text, please. Start the word with say your message with the word talk, 87222. So much going on. Great first hour with Matt Vickers, who steadfastly believes in Badenoch and the Tory motives and comes here and does his stuff. Thank you for all your response. The sort of stories you're waking up to this morning. I mean, honestly, it's one of those days where you think, oh, it's not brilliant, but then it's really, really kicked off. Kemi Badenoch has promised to drive identity politics out of public services, including the police, schools and hospitals. Today she's going to have a major speech, which apparently Vickers is going to go to in a suit, which he didn't afford us with. But anyway, he's going along. She's going to say, I've got the details, I've got the plan. I'm not just one of those politicians like, you see in the House of Commons that stand up and say something just for the sake of it. I've got a plan. The police need looking after. Schools and hospitals have been infiltrated by ideology, and apparently the Tories are going to end that. The other big story that's got you going is front page of the Telegraph. Billions in aid cash handed to terrorists at a time, my friends, when we have the highest taxation in the world, when our public services are creaking, when nothing seems to work, our borders are overrun, our army is non-existent. A secret government report says that terrorists, hostile states and gangsters have been given more than £28 million of taxpayers' money through the last couple of years, which makes an absolute joke, doesn't it, of all the stench about we've got to save. I said it about foreign aid. I'd love your thoughts. During the years of austerity under Cameron, 34 government departments, this is a fact, 33 were cut and only 1, foreign aid, was increased. Is it not time? Here's the question today. However harsh this might sound, charity begins at home. We're creaking here and we need help. I'm going to play it again before I get my next guest on, because I think it's brilliant and I want to get you into Tuesday in the right way. I want a Prime Minister or a leader of this country to stand up and stop giving money to ridiculous things, a bit like Trump did. This is the best speech he ever gave. Have a watch, have a listen.
$40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million.
7:05. Let's say a very good morning to a regular on the show we love having on, former Conservative Party leader, and I'm proud to say should have been Prime Minister. He'd have been brilliant. Good morning, Sir Ian Duncan Smith. How are you?
Good morning. Not bad. It's at least the sun's shining this morning.
Not for a while. Listen, front page of the Telegraph. Let's start with this story. I mean, this is the sort of story that gets hard-working alarm clock Brits so frustrated, and understandably so. They're out at work. They're paying exorbitant taxes. Businesses are being crushed by this government. Our public services are creaking. We've got no army, and we've given, according to a secret government report, Ian, criminals, gangsters and Russia benefit from 28 billion of misdirected taxpayers' funds. It's just a joke, man. How does anybody that works for a living not just listen to this and go, what's happened to this country? That's ludicrous.
Well, it's a classic case. When you get into government, what happens down in the bowels of the building, if you don't get in to find out that these things are happening, that nobody tells you about it when you get in there, you end up sitting doing a job whilst the money is flowing out in the wrong direction. And I think it's an example really of government ministers not doing their jobs, asking for all the detail that goes on. I used to find out all sorts of detail about people who are commissioning consultancy reports from various universities, paying huge sums of money, and then they would turn up on your desk, you never having asked for it, and then you were in front of the House of Commons answering questions as to why this report had said how terrible, useless or appalling you were. And I just stopped it stone dead. I said, that's it. Everything has to come by my desk. If I don't sign it off, it doesn't happen. But that's what goes on in government departments. And it's up to ministers to get a grip of their departments and to say go right down into the bowels of it, look at everything going on, every penny of expenditure, and say why. What Trump said there is what you'll be astonished goes on constantly, where somebody once gave some money to some place and it's turned out to go there every single year. You have to kill it stone dead by putting a line through that item. That's good management. And the trouble is, half the ministers that are going on in this government have never run a business in their life. They've never had to cut a paycheck. And they've lost all sight too often of the fact that every pound matters to somebody out there who's paying tax.
It's interesting. It's really interesting that, actually, because, I mean, loads of response to this story, utter frustration and anger, and this misplaced belief, not misplaced in the past, but now, I think we've done this for years, given away. I mean,
I can tell you, I can guarantee that's true. What we must have given away would have been enough to fund the defence forces for a decade, I suspect, if you look back through the amount of money, and then you look at the amount that we spend on overseas aid. Now, I know supporting countries and organisations in crisis is an important feature of a developed and democratic nation to a degree, but the key question is, some of those things, you heard Trump spouting about these things, it's true, you'd be astonished when I got in. I was figuring out why were we spending money on projects that I'd never heard of and which had no rationale behind them. But it's because they get into accustomed to doing it, and so nobody challenges.
Well, I was going to ask you, when you... And I had this conversation with John Redwood about a year ago, and I said, why are the blobs so controlling? And he said, you can talk about how there's a huge number of them and they've got political antennae, but he said it comes down to management. He said exactly what you said, and he said, I would just say in my department, that's not bloody well happening. The reality is, it would strike me, we've done it for years, some misplaced sort of belief that we're the moral leaders, and I made the point about under Cameron. It's a fact. There were 34 government departments, 33 were cut under his austerity plans, and yet foreign aid. And I don't know whether the British public just turned a blind eye or didn't know as much, but I think with the way the way this country is, the way people look at, businesses being screwed to the ground, borders, people coming in and getting more, people's taxes, people's shopping, people's diesel, fuel, petrol, whatever, everything going through the roof, and they suddenly go, hold on a minute, it's another example, isn't it? A bit like the way immigrants are treated, illegal immigrants. It's another example of us, the British public, being shortchanged and being left at the back of the queue. And that's how people this morning are responding to me and saying, this is ridiculous and wrong.
I can actually believe that you're getting that response, because I get it in the constituency whenever I'm knocking on doors, talking to people. The truth is that helping nations in difficulty is a principle that I think is reasonable. Constantly pumping money out because you have the money to pump out is mad. I mean, I'll give you an honest example. The way that this is run on overseas aid, which I discovered talking to colleagues about it, was that what happens is you have to get rid of the money by the end of the year. So what then happens in the last 4 or 5 months, These guys are shoveling money out of the door to projects that they haven't done due diligence on and getting it out. Why? Because they're worried that if the Treasury discovers they haven't spent the money, they get it cut next year.
Well, why don't they give it to something that needs dealing with? Why isn't there good management? It's not rocket science, is it?
Honestly, when you look at how these things are run at times, you would just tear your hair out at the idea that the bonkers nonsense that it's got to be spent by the end of the financial year, otherwise you lose that money and probably have a cut to your budget. So everybody shovels this money out to a load of rubbishy project, which is 9 times out of 10, where most of these stupid projects come from. They come from that end of year spending. That is something you could change with one swipe of the pen. And the other bit is, you know, I always said it was a problem if we're going to end up spending more on overseas aid from our budget than we were spending on defence. And that's what's happened for a significant amount of time, because at the end of it all, you spent nearly 1% of GDP on overseas aid without any sense of whether or not it's returning anything that was British to us, either in manufacture or in product or anything at all. And that's the whole point. It should have been, we spend the money, and if they want to spend it to get good things, they should be buying back from Britain. And that would be at least a reasonable way of doing it.
It is extraordinary to sort of a layman like me that there is such complete lack of intelligent, common sense management decisions. I mean, here's a thing. So yesterday, we all know that the benefits bill, and God, you did such a great job for 2 years at the DWP, but the benefits bill now outstrips the amount of money that comes into the exchequer in terms of people who work. Yesterday, ministers ruling out any cuts to Britain's benefits budget to help defend our nation. Government sources say welfare will be spared from a cabinet whip round aimed at boosting the UK's cash-strapped armed forces. And I put this at the Tories' door, I've said it to you before, I think it's one of the most disgraceful cuts that's gone on for years and years. It was seen as an easy cut, the defence system, and I think it's come back to bite us on the arse. But if we're actually saying we're giving 28 billion in foreign aid and we've got no army, and we're giving 332 billion to people, and yes, I have to qualify it, I'm sure a majority of those people need our help, and I'm happy to do that. But we know that people game the system and take advantage. Somebody has got to get this whole goddamn mess by the scruff of the neck. All I ever hear about, Ian, is, well, there's 10,000 the blob. They've been doing it for years. Or, you know, it's really important that we look good in Lesotho. No, it isn't. It's important that you look at the British people in the eye and say, we're making your lives as best as we can, and we're protecting you to the hilt. And I don't think this government and the back end of the Tory government can look the people in the eyes anymore and say they did that.
Well, the number one priority in government is defence of the realm.
Yeah.
That's it. It is the number one priority that you defend the people in these islands. That's what you're elected for. All the rest of it is negotiable, but that should not be negotiable. And one of the biggest problems we had was the stupid end of the Cold War said that we didn't need to spend any money on defence. And yet here we are today, probably with the greatest threats facing us since the 1930s. China is building, out of one shipyard in China, builds more naval ships than the whole of the United States put together. One naval yard builds more naval ships than the whole of the US put together. Europe doesn't build ships hardly at all. So we are being outstripped by totalitarian states right in our face. You've got him visiting North Korea. Russia is at war with Ukraine, supported by China. Iran was being supplied with weapons, munitions, etc. during the course of the war with the US recently. All of this stuff goes on in front of us, and people still argue somehow that we don't have a problem. We have a major problem on our hands. Freedom of the people in this country and others is now under threat, and we're still arguing about reducing welfare spending, and you could reduce it. The Centre for Social Justice, which I set up and run, has come up with figures to show how if you stop these ridiculous claims quite often for depression and anxiety, which could be dealt with by one simple factor: go back to work.
Yeah.
Work is a health treatment for depression and anxiety. If you were able to do that to a significant number of these, and I believe it's possible, then you would actually reduce the budget and save something in the order of anything from 20 billion to 30 billion just out of those and a few other things as well. And that would simply make it tighter and better, and those who need the benefits would get them, and those who don't will be helped back into work to be gainfully employed. And even the NHS has said work is a health treatment for people with depression and anxiety.
I have to say that when, and I'm not just saying it, I've said it to you away from on air as well, I think the job you did at DWP was the beginning of something really good. I fail to understand how people are supposed to swallow you go to work, we're going to increasingly tax you, we're going to make what you pay for really not available to you a lot of the time, and when it is, it's not up to scratch. But I want you to know that what we're going to do is we're going to actually give out the feeling that it's better not to work. And I always qualify it because there's millions of people, well, I would say 4 million, who are disabled and mentally ill, and I absolutely want to pay my tax. But we need to. I mean, it happens every time I have this conversation here, and people will go, "But I'm on disability benefits, and I'm going to miss out." No, you shouldn't. But you people have to understand, the genuine claimants, that you are having a harder time because people are gaming the system, and this government refuses to accept that there are people taking the what's it out of the system. The back end of the Tories the same. It is getting to a point where if somebody said to me the other day, and I think this is really salient. You know, when I'm much older than you, but when I went to work, you left school, you went to work, or you went to uni or college. I don't care what any person tells me, Ian. Nowadays, there's a third choice, and that's signing on. It was never meant to be a career. It was meant to be a safety net, but it has been abused and it has been used as an excuse for far too long. And this government, we've got no defence and no NHS really that works. And yet we're handing out 330... You and I in this conversation this morning, if we look at billions in aid handing out to terrorists and what you just said about saving by sending people with anxiety back to work, we found 50 billion quid in the last 7 minutes. 50 billion quid.
I mean, all the stuff is published by the Centre for Social Justice and it's all calculated. The reality is that it's not that the government doesn't know this. They do. I mean, I've talked to the Welfare Secretary and others, and they know this. But the trouble is they're trapped now because their backbenchers are determined not to do this. So the result is the government is scrabbling around trying to find enough money for the Chancellor to agree to the Defence Investment Plan. Without the Defence Investment Plan, all the projects that would modernise the British Armed Forces are on hold. Particularly this new sixth-generation fighter, which is desperately needed by the RAF, which we're doing jointly with Italy and, importantly, Japan, that we are the one country that has not paid our dues on this, and we are behind, and Japan's going bonkers about this, so is Italy. You know, we are reneging on a contractual deal to develop that aircraft. And so we have here now aircraft carriers shoved up in port, not working. We don't have the aircraft to fly off them, and we have a problem with our armed forces being ill-equipped and unable, therefore, to mount operations. And the trouble is we face the greatest threat that we've faced since the 1930s. And I keep saying to everybody, can't we add up as to what that problem is?
Yeah.
Yes, we have to save money, but we have to save money in welfare from those who need an alternative. The alternative to sitting on your backside at home, feeling depressed, is to get work, and that helps lift your depression. Get treatment at the same time, by all means.
But let's have it out there. I said this
is vital for us and for our personal well-being.
I said it to Cameron. I said it to Cameron in an interview years ago, and he looked at me like I'd landed from Mars. I'm very happy to pay my tax, but we have to acknowledge that there are people who are gaming the system, and you're absolutely right. I would go further. I would insist that in return for their benefits payments, right, whilst they're looking for something, not that they're going to use the excuse, yes, treatment, that they do some form of community service and give something back to a society that is shelling out much, much more money than it's ever shelled out. And as you quite rightly said, the mental impact, or putting it on your CV, or learning to get out of bed and getting some routine in your life is by far and away the greatest way of dealing with depression and anxiety, if indeed, and you might not agree with this, a lot of these people, or most of these people, have that. We've become a nation of apologists, and those Labour MPs, of course, they don't want to be seen as the people that cut welfare benefits. But I'd also like to look them in the face, I don't get much of a chance, to say, how do you explain to the hard-working alarm clock Brit? And people always go, oh, you're doing that again. You can't see a doctor, and you can't see a dentist, and your taxi's going through the roof, and your weekly shop's gone up threefold. I just think the word I use every day, whether it's about 28 billion to foreign aid or whatever it is, it's just unfair, Ian. That's how it feels to many millions of people right now. Unfair. And I think they've just reached the end of their tether, really, somehow. That's what I think.
Well, I have to tell you, it's not about harming people. It's about getting people back to work so their lives change. Honestly, as I said time and time again, being in work isn't just about the money. It builds character, it builds determination, it helps your family to thrive, it helps households, therefore, to have the right focus. Kids do better at school when their parents are in work, working hard to earn the money. They learn something from that. And so it benefits everybody around you and, of course, the individuals concerned. So helping people get back to work in that circumstance saves money, yes, but it also helps people develop and to stabilize their lives. All I'm saying is the problem right now, if the government refuses to be able to do that, then what happens here is that they will spend more and more money on welfare when we need it also for other projects. And defense, of course, is critical, not least of which some of the infrastructure, which had been breaking down dramatically over the last decade or so, as it comes to an end, bridges and things like that need some investment. So we've got to start making changes to this. But right now, the problem for the government isn't that they don't know this. They know this. What they will not do is confront their backbenchers over the requirement to make savings on welfare. These not even dramatic savings. They're just savings to get it back to where it was when I left it. COVID has punched a massive hole through that. We spent far too much money during COVID, and people got used to the idea. It took away face-to-face checks, which is vital to find out whether people are actually changing. All that has to be restored. And so the key thing here is it's just common sense. It's not harmful. It's in fact very helpful because what you're doing is saving lives.
Before you go, Woody from Melton Mowbray wants me to ask you this morning, Jez. About foreign aid, can you ask Sir Ian, to certain countries, I think we can't stop it as we pay foreign aid to support foreign British government arms contracts. Is that true?
I don't think the foreign aid is used for the most part for buying arms. In fact, it's meant to be...
for making countries perhaps do business with us, he's saying.
Well, it's humanitarian, and what I'm saying is if we're giving the money to countries, we should want those countries to buy stuff that's made by us or services that are come from the UK, because that's one way of getting your own money to invest back in your own country. Arms sales, etc., come from very much different budgets on this and aren't meant to be in that. But if there is evidence of that, then I'd be very happy to see it.
Just one question as a sort of older statesman. You see what's happening with politics. You see Farage, you see Kemi talking about detail and common sense today, the madness of the Green Party and everything that's going on. Do you think, you're an old-fashioned man, right? Do you think this country is broken? Do you think this country can turn a corner? There's so much misery and unhappiness and a feeling of unfairness. Do you think it can change, Ian, genuinely?
Yeah, I'm an optimist. I know it's difficult to say that, but I'm an optimist. I believe something very powerful. I believe in the British people. I believe in their resilience, their ability. I don't believe in politicians, but I believe in people. And I believe the British people are capable of anything. We are the most ingenious, most competitive nation in the world. The British ability to be able to find solutions to problems is second to none. No other country could have started the Industrial Revolution. We are still right there with many of those companies in California on our ability to be able to find solutions in software problems, which makes the jaw drop of Americans that I talk to. People come here because they know individual British people have such capability in them. The world would be a very bad place if it weren't for this country. Our history, for all those naysayers, is one I'm proud of because we've given to the world English common law, the concept of freedom, habeas corpus, the right to a fair trial. All these things come from these islands, and therefore we have a fantastic history, but the people themselves are the history. And so all I say to those out there, the greatest people on earth are the British people, not because they're the strongest, most powerful, have the biggest armies. They're the greatest on earth because they're the most ingenious, greatest problem solvers, and they have a remarkable sense of humour. We take our sense of humour abroad with us. Sometimes people don't like it much, but I have to tell you, we always laugh in the face of adversity. I don't know many other countries that do that.
It's great to have you on, my friend, and I mean that. Thank you as ever. Tuesday mornings with the legend that is Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, 7:25. Thank you very much indeed, Sir Ian. And many people will text me in the next half an hour and say what I say publicly, and I make no bones of this. When you listen to him talk, How statesmanlike is that? You compare that to the man that runs this country and some of the people that want to run this country, proper politician. To give balance, in the next hour on this programme, the First Lady of Reform, Sarah Pocham, will be here. Claire Coutinho, Shadow Cabinet Minister, the Shadow Energy Secretary, will be here. And Showan Joseph, the Labour MP for Ashford. That's what this breakfast show's about. Different opinions and your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Morning, George.
Morning, Jesse. For 14 years, the Tories said the words that we wanted to hear just to get elected and then didn't deliver. Why should we believe what they're saying now? Nothing has changed. Adopting reforms policies and thinking they're going to get the popular vote. Not going to happen.
I think our candidate, Rob Kenyon, is a strong local candidate. You have to have a mixture in Westminster. I always say this, you need a mixture of common sense, life experience politicians like myself. And then you also, of course, need your, super intelligent geniuses to maybe write the laws and enact the policies that we want to see in place.
The UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:30. We're live across the United Kingdom. It's Tuesday morning. I'm in a very good mood this morning. I've no idea why. I shouldn't be. I didn't sleep well. Not that you care. Rob, yeah, I did ring you. I'll ring you back. 03, sorry, just my personal one. 03, well, not personal. I'm not in a, it's just, anyway. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number you need. You can leave a little voice note. It might be a big voice note. Tom is taking them. You can text 87222. Morning, Phil.
Morning, Jess. Phil from Nottingham. Now, Kemi may have a plan, but I'm not sure she's got a party. And what I mean by that is I think half the MPs behind her probably don't believe all this stuff that she's coming out with. It should be in the Lib Dems.
Who should be in the Lib Dems? Kemi Badenoch? Or that, really? I think the way for the Tories to be more successful is to weed out the wets. Sorry, that's just the way I see it as an ex-Tory voter. 0344 499 1000. My God, let's go to the phone lines. We've got Claire Coutinho on the way. We're just sorting her out. Let's go to Norwich. Barry, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm all right. How's Norwich this morning?
Oh, the sun is shining. The sky is blue. Yeah, it's lovely.
The country's in a mess and stinks. Anyway, never mind. What else happening, Baz? What you got?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on what we were saying with Ian Duncan Smith a minute ago regarding the benefit system.
Yeah.
Right? I think that there should be stop for all foreign nationals having benefits, whether you're a legal immigrant or a legal immigrant. Yeah, you should not be entitled to benefits. End of. Yeah, you should not be getting any sort of benefit.
But that misses... Just let me jump in 1 second. That misses the point. I look at it differently, OK? I look at it differently. I say that if... I'm not bothered. This is my thing. I don't like the immigration issue, but I'm not bothered about the colour of one's skin. Let me just make the point. If you work and you pay tax, or you build a business, or you give something back, that's fine. I'm just sick of the people... I don't care what colour they... who do bugger all and expect us all to pay for it. Of course illegal immigrants shouldn't be given benefits, 1,000,000%. But you can't say that somebody that came to this country 20 years ago and has built a business like the guy that drives me home every single night, who respects this country, who's more angry about illegal immigration than me, if he lost his job or his business went bust, he should get some help, shouldn't he?
Oh, if you've worked and paid into the system, but, I don't believe that if you come off a boat,
no.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you should be entitled to...
But that's an illegal immigrant, right? Because let's nail this as well. I don't think anybody comes on a boat if they were going to get here in a legal sense anyway. I mean, that's a con job, isn't it?
Well, of course it is, and do you know what I mean? But I'm not going to go on to that. But another thing I'm going to say, which is going to be quite controversial, but I'm quite adamant on this. This two-child benefit, I don't think there should be any benefits for children. I don't believe that you should... having children is a choice. Right? And before you have a child, you should make sure you're financially stable and able to look after that children. I don't believe that someone who doesn't have children should have to pay for other people's children.
I did a lot on this for a long time, as people know. My view is very simple. I'm with you. I don't think... I think there should be a cap. I do sort of agree. But it's a bit like council tax, and it's a bit like heating allowance, and it's a bit, there's many people that need that money. Hear me out, let me get to the end. There's many people that don't. But if we're actually saying, and trust me, peeps, I've met quite a few, oh, I'm just going to have another kid because I'll get more benefits, or I'm just going to have another kid because I'll get a bigger council out. That's fundamentally, again, against the people that go to work. However, there are people in lower paid jobs who want to have a family, who are working and who need a bit of help. Again, like the people who are genuinely disabled and unemployed, I'm really happy to pay my tax, but I'm not for the people who are gaming the system, or the people, and I've met a few, that have 6, 7, 8 kids because that's just what they do. No, I'm not paying for their procreation. I don't think that's outrageous at all. I think you're spot on. Absolutely spot on. Barry, thank you. 0344 499 1000. Oh, Rob's on it already. He's off. We're going to have to deal with that. Let's go to James. Good morning.
Morning, Jezza. James from Liverpool here. Another glorious week in the UK. Just that you talk about benefits there, and just imagine this. So, I look at it and I think, right, I get up every day, 5 o'clock in the morning, head off to work. Let's say another million of us decide that we're not going to continue on that path, and we just go, you know what, we're going to pick up the benefits, the free house, all that good stuff. The government already have got us into a financial mess, which is probably going to cause a collapse. So you probably even wouldn't need 1 million people to down tools and go, look, I've had enough. You can't tax the people anymore. There's no money left. You squeeze the orange, there's no juice coming out. So maybe that's the way forward. Maybe we need more people to go, you know what, I'm not working. I'm going to take up this benefit system until this shower have gone. Absolute worst government ever. Have a great day, my friend. It's more good news as ever.
Yeah, it's always lovely to have a miserable git on. Keith in Nottingham. Morning, Jess. Listen to your talk about Starmer. I think you're doing him a disservice. He's got the whole country singing with one voice. I know it's not a particularly nice song, but hey, it's true. IDS is living in the past, says Mick. How dare you criticise Ian Duncan Smith? Our DNA has been diluted and we no longer have the qualities he dreams of. Maybe we do. Maybe we've just lost sight of them because we're too busy helping everybody else. Talk. I don't believe anyone can do so much so badly. Nothing works. Nothing makes sense. Nothing is fair. This is a deliberate attack on our country. There is more than one way to win a war and bring a country to its knees. God, says Fiona. Sue from North Yorkshire. Yet again, Kevin Bendock is copying reform policy. Reform's policy sometime has been to remove all DEI, and last week they announced that they will replace the Equalities Act. Lo and behold, Kemi Badenoch copies reform. She's no original ideas of her own. Sue in North Yorkshire. Finney says it's not just 28 billion in overseas aid, it's all those phony charities that get money as well. Bill's in Romsey. Starmer is apparently looking at net zero savings to boost defence. I bet Miliband will put his hat in the ring and go for the leadership. Oh, God, Rogers, no. Roger says, the British have long welcomed foreigners into the UK that work hard and respect our culture. The police are being told to treat certain cultures differently. Which one sounds racist? Are we ready to go? 25 to 8. I told you all sorts of views. Let's go to the Shadow Energy Secretary and Shadow Minister for Equality. It's always great to have her on. Claire Coutinho, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
I am desperate to ask you about the front page of the Daily Telegraph because my audience and listeners are up in arms. A secret government report says that in the last few months and years we've given £28 billion in foreign aid cash to terrorists, hostile states and gangsters, whilst the British tax bill's gone through the roof. The British benefits bill, welfare bill's gone through the roof, and most people will tell you that everything in this country isn't what it once was. What would the Tories do about that? Because that's outrageous.
Well, we've said that we would take foreign aid down, right down to 0.1% of GDP. So, yes, we would focus on humanitarian crises where there's been earthquakes, for example, that kind of thing. But I'm afraid far too much of the foreign aid budget is doing pointless things to countries which don't like us. I mean, I can talk to you about the net zero space where you've got the foreign aid budget being used to put solar panels on roofs in Kyrgyzstan. I mean, who is that helping in Britain? And I think this is the most important thing. We need to cut state spending. We are taxing the country too much, and we are the only party that has set out how you could save the state £50 billion, and part of that is cutting the foreign aid budget.
The problem is, and I had Ian Duncan Smith on, and you know I have to do this job in the correct way, Claire. That all sounds very good, but of course the public would expect me to ask you this. You're talking about a saving of £50 billion. And yet when the Tories left office after 14 years, we had the highest tax rates in 70 years. I agree with you about humanitarian aid, but I remember, I was telling this story this morning, when Cameron was in power. I'm sure you weren't in Parliament, but I remember this, and if you were, I apologise, but there were 34 government departments when austerity started under the Tories. 33 were forced to cut their budgets, and the only one that didn't was foreign aid. And I think we're at a point, whether it's defence or welfare or net zero, where people are just going, this is so unfair, and yet another symptom of how the people that work hard end up at the back of the queue, Claire. Do you understand that frustration?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And look, I wasn't in government then. I wasn't even in Parliament then. That was, I think, about a decade before I even came into Parliament. And I would just say a couple of things. You know, when we came in 2010, there was a coalition with the Lib Dems, and the world has seriously changed since then. So when I came in to be Net Zero Secretary, it was the last 9 months of that Conservative period. And the first thing I did was a Net Zero reset to say, look, we need to look at the costs. We need to look at what this is doing to the affordability of people's lives. And I've only built since there, and you know the party has changed its approach thanks to Kemi's leadership. It's one of the reasons I backed her on that issue in particular. So absolutely, I think some of the things that we were doing in the past were wrong. It's one of the reasons I like Kemi is that she's very willing to confront those things and make sure that we are now in a position which means that our policies are going to benefit the British public, and whether that is cutting foreign aid to make sure that you can cut taxes and have a sensible level of spending in the state, making sure that you're realigning the welfare budget, which is spiralling out of control. Again, we're the only party that's been consistent on that. Whether you are repealing the net zero legislation, which is now getting in the way of cheap energy and our industry in this country, we have to roll back on a lot of the things that we were told was the right thing to do over the last however many years.
We were talking also on the front page of the Daily Mail today. The other main news story is university a waste of money? It's one of those subjects that becomes really, really... it gets dissected a lot. I mean, I'm the living example of a person who went to a university 40 years ago that was not the greatest and got a third-rate degree and had a very good time. But it strikes me now that there are many more universities and colleges offering not particularly good degrees, and certainly with this government destroying the opportunities for business to grow with NI increases and everything. Graduate recruitment is an all-time low, and people are ending up, there's a report today, with a 40 grand debt and less chance of getting a job, Claire Coutinho, than if they just started work or taken an apprenticeship. Too many universities, don't you think? Too many useless courses, that's what I reckon.
Well, look, I was the first person in my family to go to university. For me, it was a very positive thing. But what makes me so sad now is you've got all of these young people, I think it's 1 in 5, who come out of university, they've got huge debts, and actually they're saying it wasn't worth it. I mean, how much of a tragedy is that? You come out with this enormous debt and you think it's not worth it. So I think there are two things. One, the quality of university courses. You've got to get rid of the Mickey Mouse courses, the courses that are, frankly, in some cases, just being used as a front for visa applications. And you've also got to acknowledge that what the Labour Party are doing is they are killing graduate employment. Like, that is not a good thing, that you've got fewer and fewer graduate jobs and you've got people who've gone through the university system who just can't find employment that makes their degree worthwhile.
Well, I'm guessing they can't find employment because...
expansion of apprenticeships.
Well, I'm guessing they can't get employment because this Labour government is destroying businesses, aren't they?
Exactly, 100%. They are killing off the economy. And the second thing I would say is I am really pro people being able to leave school, you know, when they're ready at 16, 18 and go into apprenticeships. Yeah. If you look, by the way, at some of the chief executives of our biggest businesses, people don't talk about this. Quite a few of them didn't go to university, they did apprenticeships or they went straight into business. And we've somehow lost that train of thought. So I would love to see people being able to do that. You actually can do a lot of things without a university degree now. You look at AI and all the things that you can teach yourself, and I know I've seen some tech companies actually are offering enormous amounts of money for people who are school leavers who want to go into their company and just start learning and getting on with things straight away. So all of those routes need to be offered. And just to make this final point, I think we've got to get rid of credentialism, because you now got so many routes where they say the only way you can do this certain job or that certain profession is by getting a degree. We didn't used to have that, and that means there are people who are sort of left behind who could do a great job, I don't know, being a police officer or whatever it might be, but they didn't get a degree and actually we're blocking them from those routes. So I think trying to find a way that people can get into the system would be really, really positive as well.
Listen, I completely agree. I know you've got to go, and we thank you as ever. Claire Coutinho, Shadow Energy Secretary and Minister for Equality, 7:42. Morning, Damon.
Morning, Jeremy. Damon from Wigan. This foreign aid business where you send money to countries that can't sustain or look after themselves. Has anybody actually looked round in this country? This country looks like a third world country. If we should be giving foreign aid, we should be giving it back to ourselves, because this country is down the tubes. You've got countries around the world that are desperately poor who have got a better hospital service than what we've got. So all this about sending foreign aid here and sending foreign aid there, they want to give it to us because we are now feeling like second-rate citizens in a third world country. So come on, government, wake up. Take the foreign aid back and put it into this country that has got absolutely nothing going for it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:45. We're live across the United Kingdom. In a minute, Shojan Joseph, the Labour MP for Ashford. I told you this station has all the opinions. 0344 499 1000. Jez, tell Matt Vickers I'm another lifelong Tory voter who will never vote for them again. They are the sole reason we're in this utter mess with this dreadful, dreadful Labour government. Cliff in Berkshire, if we do spend more on defence, will that money be spent in the UK? Can we start making our own kit again? Should we keep funding Ukraine? Oh, my God. Paul says it's too late. It's too late to worry about defence. This country's been overrun anyway. Talk, great show. I'm 80. And hand on heart, Matt, we need reform to make our once wonderful country great again. I wish you would join. I was in the Cold War and we were proud to serve our late Queen. Wouldn't serve this monarchy or government to a cup of tea. I've had enough. Paul. Morning, Jez. Here's the thing. It would be great to financially support anyone who needs support, foreign aid included, but when you can't look after your own house first, it will be impossible to be generous. I would like a Bugatti, but I drive a Tesla, which means that's quite a nice car anyway. Carol from Clacton goes further. I know someone who had a baby every 5 years so she could stay on benefits as a single parent. People are taking the mickey. 0344 499 1000. As ever, I try my damnedest to bring balance. He's come back for more, the poor bugger. Shojan Joseph, Labour MP for Ashford. I thought we'd never see you again. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good morning, and thanks for having me back here again.
No, listen, I said it to Matt Vickers this morning. We might disagree on things, but democracy and debate is what this show is about. And I have to start with the story that's wound the hell out of my viewers this morning. Billions in aid cash handed to terrorists. Criminals, Shojan gangsters and Russia, including the Islamic State, benefited from £28 billion of misdirected taxpayers' funds. Ian Duncan-Smith was telling us that you get into government and all this stuff goes on, and it's incredibly difficult, but it comes down to how ministers respond. One of the things that you should know, and I'm sure you do, amongst your constituents, is that people are all the time now saying it's unfair. Illegal migrants get a better deal than us. Foreign gangsters, criminals and charities get a better deal than us. People on welfare, people will say to me, are being benefited better than us, and we go to work. The alarm clock Brits have had enough. Do you understand that frustration?
Absolutely. I share that frustration as well, Jeremy. And under this government, the foreign aid has come down.
Has it?
Yes, absolutely. The foreign aid was cut under this government, and this report you're referring to happened under the Tories, and it clearly shows that have they lost the control on everything in that government.
I made the point earlier, and I'll make it again to you, that this started, and I remember having an argument with David Cameron when austerity was brought in 2010. There were 34 government departments, Shojan, and 33 were cut, and one, which was foreign aid, was increased. The problem is, people have this whole debate about, there's an earthquake in Pakistan. And humanitarian, we should always look after humanity, but we have to look after our own. And I don't understand why politicians find that so difficult to stomach, because if your own people, the Tory party won't admit that Britain's broken. The Labour Party won't admit that Britain's broken, but Britain is broken, right? And Britain, what was it? Let me put this to you. Apparently last night, your leader, Starmer, and ministers have ruled out cuts to Britain's benefits budget in any way to help defence spending, and they're running around, government sources say, trying to have a cabinet whip round to find how they can save money so that we can provide for the army. Why don't we cut the benefits bill?
Well, Jeremy, I don't agree that your comment about Britain is broken. I don't think Britain is broken.
Of course it's broken,
Britain has been mismanaged by the Tories for the last 14 years.
It's been mismanaged by you lot for 2 years as well, let's be honest.
It clearly shows that report. They had no clue where the money was going. So the foreign aid has come down under this government.
How?
And that money will be used on defence.
Well, how's the foreign aid come down? Where's the proof of that? How?
The foreign aid has cut. The government has reduced the foreign aid under this government.
So why haven't they used the money for the cash-strapped armed forces? Because there was a review 2 years ago and Starmer still hasn't brought that in.
Absolutely, you're right. There's a defence strategic review was happened and been nearly a year now. We need to have a clarity on how much money, where this will be spent. There's a commitment from this government.
So you're telling me that this Labour government has saved billions of foreign aid and they're going to spend it on the armed forces? That's what you're telling me?
Yes, that's correct.
I haven't heard that from a government official.
The foreign aid has reduced under this government and that money will go to the defence.
But let's deal with the other question, which we know that Labour backbenchers, and you have an opinion, and that's absolutely great. We know that the benefits bill in this country has just topped £332 billion, right? We know that the tax Rachel Reeves gets from people who work is now, for the first time in history, less than the benefits bill. And yet Keir Starmer wanted to what did he want to do? He wanted to cut a ridiculously small amount, £5 billion, and all of you and your colleagues on the backbenches wouldn't let him do that. So I want to put this to you. Why will you not, as a party, take money away from people who are feigning mental illness, who are not disabled, who haven't seen anybody face to face, and are playing the system to the detriment of hard-working tax-paying Brits?
See, the benefit bills need to be brought under control. We lost control of this, again, for many, many years. Under the Tories, the benefits will gone up. It's not just... So,
but you can't, after 2 years, just blame the Tories. Why have you not? Why did your party, your backbenchers, make Keir Starmer backtrack to the point that he can't even cut £5 billion? I could cut billions off that welfare budget. Do you, as a Labour MP, accept that people are gaming the system?
See, I'm not one of those backbenchers who...
Do you accept, as a Labour MP, that people are playing the benefits game?
I think...
Feigning mental illness?
I have seen that. I myself worked in the mental health system, and I have seen the number of young people coming through the system. So this is where it is important. We need to understand why the benefits bill going up. You can't just go...
Because we're surrounded by lazy, feckless people and a government, and past governments, yes, who won't say, we're not giving you that for doing nothing, you've got to give something back. What's wrong with that?
So what we need to do is here, and that's exactly what this government is doing, understand why our benefits bill going up. I'll give you an example.
We're soft.
I'll give you an example. The young people, not in education or in employment, the number of the young people has gone up significantly over a period of time.
Why is that?
It is because that these children think that I'm going to work, it's not getting paid me. That's
I can tell you there's two reasons that youth unemployment's through the roof, including that story today about universities is a waste of money. Lowest ever recruitment for graduates, lowest ever recruitment for young people, because your government is destroying small and medium businesses with its NI increases and its crazy workers' rights bill. Businesses are going out of business in the thousands on a weekly basis, so they can't employ people. But I go back to the question. You say you're different. Why can't your party address the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems in this country, which is there are lazy, feckless people taking advantage and sponging off a welfare state that was the greatest invention in the modern world? Why can't the Labour Party be tough on those shirkers?
Well, the Labour Party is addressing, not sticking plaster. We're understanding why this is happening. That's why the youth guarantee schemes has brought in work to support to go back to the work. So it's not that you can't just stop the benefit of somebody who was getting this benefit for the last 10, 15 years, say, from tomorrow.
What about my theory that to be getting benefit, they should be giving something back? They should be made to do community service, do something in the society that helps, gets them out of bed, gives them motivation, gets something on the CV. What's wrong with that?
Well, we need to understand not everybody who is on benefits are able to work.
No, but there are many who can.
But there are, absolutely.
And do you know what the greatest cure for mental illness and anxiety and depression is? To go and meet people and talk and do something.
See, what happened over the years, we have written up so many young people. We haven't given enough support for these young people to go back to work. And that's exactly what this government is doing. And you're probably aware of the report that was produced by Alan Milburn looking into the issues why young people being kept away from the work. Yes,
because they're lazy, many of them.
Well, mental health has been one of the reasons.
Mental health, but you heard Ian Duncan Smith say, when he was at the DWP, you had to have a face-to-face meeting. Now you can phone up and go, oh, I'm suffering from depression, I'll have 6 months off. Let me ask you one other thing as well. It's always good to have you here. Andy Burnham, who seems to be doing well in his life. We're not sure about Makerfield's, obviously, an election, and we'll see what happens on the 18th. He says that he's eyeing a potential challenge to Keir Starmer. Would you welcome that challenge if Burnham gets into Parliament?
Well, there is no leadership challenge at the moment.
Oh, you are straight down the line, aren't you?
We want Andy Burnham. He's a great leader. He has achieved a lot.
Well, he was turned down twice by your party. He's not that good.
He's very experienced. He's got experience in Westminster. He's got experience as running...
He wasn't particularly successful. And the reason I've done it is, I'm not trying to be horrible, Andy Burnham today accused of hypocrisy, Sharon, over £27 million that he spent on wasteful consultants, despite branding similar spending by the Tories as indefensible.
Well, you can pick up on when the politician in their positions, they what they did, what they spent the money on, that this money did not go to...
Is Andy Burnham prime ministerial material in your mind, Shojan?
Well, Andy Burnham is a great leader. He's got lots of talents. I will be going to Makersfield to campaign for him in the next coming days. We want Andy Burnham standing in the election. We want him to win.
But if he wins, he's going to take the Prime Minister out. Is that democratically all right? Do you think that Andy Burnham could become Prime Minister without there being a general election?
See, Keir Starmer have my support.
Does he?
And Andy Burnham is a great leader. We want him to win the by-election.
But you don't, because you can't possibly, because he knows that if he wins, he's going to challenge Starmer. Starmer must be the only incumbent Prime Minister in the history of the world that wants reform to win that election.
See, we have a process in Labour Party when we want to change the leadership. If that's the case, we will have to wait, and we had to have the wait till the 18th to see Andy Burnham coming to the Parliament, and then we need to see if there is a leadership challenge.
I have to go to a break, and I mean this. We don't have to agree on almost anything, but I repeatedly respect the fact you come in. Shojan Joseph, Labour MP for Ashford. Thank you very much indeed. 8 o'clock after the news.
Thank you very much.
First Aid Reform. The brilliant Sarah Pochin. Here's a list of your candidates, though, for Makerfield. I'm doing the job. For the Liberal Democrats, Count Binface for his own party, Count Binface Party. Andy Burnham, of course, the Labour Party. Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party. John Dyer for the Independents. Ed Gemmell, the Climate Party. Paul Gould, the Independent. Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party. Robert Kenyon, Reform UK. Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild. Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain. Sarah Wakefield, the Green Party. Peter Ward, Rejoin the EU. And Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. That's your list of candidates.
What we saw in that body cam footage with regards to the murder of Henry Novak was not an example of the police being unfairly vilified. It is an example of two-tier policing, and I want to make this point too, that while the conduct of those officers must come under great scrutiny, clearly, the conduct of those officers is directly downstream from the code of conduct that the police are made to adhere to with zero tolerance, for deviation.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I'd like to provide the House with information that I now have about the appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to the United States. But, Mr. Speaker, before I go into the details, I want to be very clear with this House that while this statement will focus on the process surrounding Peter Manson's vetting and appointment, at the heart of this, there is also a judgment I made that was wrong.
The name had been submitted to the King as Minister's recommendation. The Prime Minister had made an announcement that Mandelson was his nominee without caveats. The British government had sought agrément, the formal diplomatic process for a host government accepting a nominee from the US government, and that had been obtained before I arrived in post. The position taken from the Cabinet Office was that there was no need to vet Mandelson.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
This was not due process. Everyone knows the price of misleading the House. Will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility and go?
Mr. Speaker, let's be absolutely clear. Before Mandelson took up his post, UKSV recommended with red flags that clearance should be denied, and there was high concern that was not brought to my attention or the attention of the Foreign Secretary at the time or subsequently is a very serious error of judgment. She rushed to judgment as she always did, just like the Iran war. Mr. Speaker, I was elected by the British people because they let the country down for 14 long years. Whatever she says, whatever noise they make, nothing is going to distract me from delivering for our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. You know those stupid people, you and me, friends, that go out to work and pay tax so that people can sit at home and do nothing. Oh, you can't say that. Yes, I can. Thank you to Shojan Joseph, Labour MP for Ashford. To be fair, many of you think he lives in cloud cuckoo land, but he did and does come on and have the courage to acknowledge. Well, he doesn't ever acknowledge that the Labour... Well, basically, Rob nails it. He says, does he realise how hated his boss Starmer is? Does he realise that if we don't alter this welfare budget disaster, this country is going to go bust? Does he think it's fair that so many illegal foreign immigrants come into this country and live on benefits? I mean, I tried. 0344 499 1000, loads this hour. Sarah Pochin on the way, Norman Brennan on the way, Samara Gill on the way. What are you waking up to? You're waking up to an unbelievably appalling story that you've reacted in your hundreds as ever. Billions in aid cash handed to terrorists. A secret government report proves that successive governments, I'll make that point, not just this lot, have given away £28 billion to criminals, gangsters, Islamic State, Russia. £28 billion, people, whilst our taxes have gone up, our food prices have gone up, our energy prices have gone up, and that old adage about we're Great Britain, we'll look after everybody else. Yeah, humanitarian is one thing. Giving money to Islamic State, giving £28 billion when you can't get anything that works in this country is an absolute disgrace. So I'm making a call this morning. What we need... I don't agree with everything he says, but what we need is Donald Trump, who made quite possibly the greatest speech ever when he came to power, because he said, I've looked through the books and certain people are going to miss out. This is what you need to do, Starmer, not that you ever will. Take it away, DT.
$40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+. In the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million.
It's unbelievable. Can you imagine the Prime Minister of this country standing up and going, we're spending £28 billion on funding Russia, the Islamic State, whatever the charity is and whatever the country, and our own people are struggling to make ends meet. But that's the problem, peeps, with politicians. They will not accept that Britain is broken. They talk. Listen, I listened to Ian Duncan Smith and I agree with him, you know. There is so much about this country that will always maintain itself. But we get our priorities wrong nowadays. We give to those that don't pay in. We protect those that commit crimes against those who are the victims. We seem to make excuses for anybody but the hard-working alarm clock Britain. So all I hear every single day on this show is actually it's not fair. And I'd love to come in and go, isn't it wonderful? Isn't the world great? We've had a pay rise, the weather's great, our borders are secure, there's jobs available. No, there isn't. It's a disaster. But there we go. There is a party that says they can change that, although they've taken a degree of criticism in the last 24 hours. Sarah Pochin, the first lady of reform. Runcorn and Helsby, good morning. Good God, what's that behind you? Where are you? What is that?
Good morning, Jeremy. I'm actually in my office this morning, and that's a picture of the Runcorn Bridge and a picture of my boss, of course.
Very good. Sarah, so much. Did you see Shojan Joseph there, the Labour MP for Ashford? Did you hear him?
I didn't actually listen to him. I do apologise.
No, let's start with this. This morning, I had Matt Vickers on, and we had quite a feisty debate, which is always a useful thing.
I did listen to that.
Because he says that Kemi Badenoch, who is making a speech today where she's going to pledge to drive identity politics out of public services, the police, schools and hospitals, most of my listeners are going, so let me get this right. Last week when Nigel Farage stood up and said we have two-tier policing, most people, bar 5 of you, howled at him in the House of Commons and said that he was inciting violence and all these sorts of things. But this week, 7 days later, Kemi Badenoch is talking about driving out more two-tier policing. Matt Vickers said that's because what she doesn't do is stand up and tweet and get a reaction. She thinks it through and has an answer. What's your answer to that, Sarah Pochin?
I'll tell you what my answer to that is, and that is we're watching the Tories time and time again, listening to the policies that Reform put out there, listening to what Reform say, listening to Reform's reaction to events, and then, you know, tutting and scratching their heads. And then suddenly a week later, 2 weeks later, it becomes the Conservative Party policy. So all they are doing is watching and listening to what Reform says and then taking it on as theirs. And the fact is they know that what Reform say reflects the views of the British people. And therefore they have to hurry up and catch up with what we've said. And then Kemi will claim it as their policy. And look, a case in point is the whole Equalities Act issue. She's now come out and said, you know, that all needs to be rewritten. Well, when Reform said that months ago, there was lots of tutting and clutching of pearls. But the fact is the Equalities Act does not reflect anymore what it was set up to do. It is a complete excuse and smokescreen for all of the DEI woke nonsense that we're experiencing. It's an excuse not to have a meritocracy when you hire employees. You name it, a whole industry of human rights lawyers exists because of the Equalities Act. It has to go. But here we are, Kemi finally coming to the table and saying it's her policy. No, it isn't. We announced that months ago.
The issue is, of course, is that last week, and I had Nigel on the show the day after he stood up in the Commons, and he said to me that the oldest MP in the House, as he left, whispered to him, it looks like you've lost the House, dear boy, but won the country. The thing is, politicians are... they run the risk, I think, of being accused of being out of touch, right? Because they don't seem to have their finger on the pulse. But, and I want to ask you this, the Conservatives' criticism of Reform would be, it's very easy to give out platitudes orally, but what about the hard graft? How are you going to pay for these things? So let's talk about, I mean, this story today, is... 28 billion in aid cash handed to terrorists, right? This isn't, by the way, can I make the point, this isn't just the Labour Party, this goes back. This is the Islamic State, this is Russia. I played the clip by Donald Trump because that's just about what we need in this country, because we seem to be supporting anybody and everybody. But we've got to a point, Sarah, where it seems to me those who work are being punished and those at home or those who are gaming the system or screwing the system are getting away with it. How do you, not just standing up and saying it, how would a Reform government change that? How would they make these people accountable? For example, I found out today you can phone up and go, I've got depression, and get 6 months paid leave. Face to face.
It's shocking, isn't it? So this 28 billion, I think it was accounted for between 2015 and 2021 is being reported. So that actually was fairly and squarely on the Tories' lawn, wasn't it? But what a disgrace. Look, just to put it into perspective for listeners, 28 billion pounds, that's half of, or almost half of our current defence budget. And we know the state we're in with defence. How is it that the Conservative government could find 28 billion pounds to give to the Islamic State and Russia, and yet we're not able to invest in our defence capability? And look where that's left us now as a nation, utterly exposed and utterly unable to defend ourselves. So it's an absolute disgrace. And my point would be, as you've just made, who is going to be held accountable for signing off all of these loans, all of this foreign aid? You know, our foreign aid budget this year is £13.9 billion. You know, that is over 20% of our current defence budget.
Do you know what I said earlier? It's about priorities. And I know that this country was built on, you know, in the past we would do the right thing. It's about, you know, let's be perfectly honest, we're humanitarians, we're moral. Well, that's when we could afford it. But I think it's really fascinating that last night, completely and utterly mystifying, ministers last night categorically ruling out cutting any of the welfare budget, although it outstrips, as we know now, what the Exchequer gets for tax on people who work. We're not going to do that. We're going to run around Whitehall and we're going to try and get all these departments to save money so we can actually do what we said we were going to do about defence spending. We're spending nearly 14 billion on foreign aid. We're spending 332 billion on welfare. And the reason this government won't do anything about both of those is because they're terrified about upsetting their voter base. We need, whoever it is, people to come and say, do you know what? It was the greatest invention in the modern world, helping people who can't help themselves, but they're taking the PI, they are taking it now, and people need to be brought to task. You're not going to tell me you've got depression or anxiety unless you can prove it. And even if you have, maybe we can find a job that would help you improve that. And you know what? If it's more important to support whatever in Lesotho than it is to say to British people, we're going to make, you know, your health service better, or your borders more secure, or your army could defend you better, then that's what we're going to do. But I don't see that. And that's the frustration, Sarah, of millions and millions of people in this country.
Yeah, absolutely, which I totally share, which is why I am doing this job, because it has to change, and we have to have people that, like myself, are brave enough to stand up and say, no, you are not getting those welfare benefits anymore. You are more than capable of getting up off the sofa and going out and doing a job. But of course, then we come on to the fact, don't we, that the job market is being decimated by this government.
Yep.
So, you know, not only is the welfare system utterly broken, Reform have made it very clear that only British citizens will be able to be eligible for benefits. But even more importantly, we have to go back to face-to-face assessments.
Yeah,
it can't be all of this online nonsense, tick a box, I've got anxiety, and therefore it doesn't pay to go to work anymore because you can earn more sitting at home and claiming that you've got anxiety. We have to stop that, because we are destroying a generation here of young people who are not prepared to get up and get out there and get into the workplace.
You know what's really interesting? The other big news story of the day on the front of the Mail is university a waste of money, which is a really interesting one for me, because I did the worst degree at the worst university simply so I could have 3 years of having a good time. So I am a hypocrite, but 40 years on, I absolutely believe, and I've said it for a long time, I don't want university to be elitist, but I think there's too many universities and colleges. There's far too many balmy courses that make no sense whatsoever. And you make the point. This report today says that it shows that half of debt-ridden graduates earn less than average wage 5 years after leaving, which says now it's increasingly unlikely that going to university benefits you. But there also lies the problem with this government, and you said it. By raising NI and workers' rights and destroying small and medium businesses, they haven't got any bloody internships to offer to anybody, so they're not taking graduates on. The whole thing is a mess. The whole thing.
I was talking to a very successful businessman on Sunday at a local event up in Runcorn, and he was telling me that for the first time this year, they have scrapped their apprenticeship scheme. They used to take 10 apprenticeships every year. It's a business that employs about 600 people. Not only have they scrapped the apprenticeship scheme, they are now laying off people, and they will not take any young people on because of the risks involved now, because of the Workers' Rights Bill, because of the cost. Oh, and let me tell you this. He was telling me that for his business alone, the increased cost of national insurance, minimum wage, is costing him £3 billion pounds a year more. That's what his business has to find just to keep up with where they were at this time last year. Now, how is it that those people will carry on working? Why would they carry on working? And not only that, he told me that if he drops dead tomorrow and his son takes over his business, he has to pay £40 billion pounds in the business inheritance tax. So the son would just close the business and 600 people lose their jobs. The point is, this government has nobody in it that understands business, and they have destroyed the jobs market for young people with these crazy policies. They are destroying the apprenticeship schemes. And yes, going back to your point about graduates, the whole graduate job market has become ridiculous. For me, in my opinion, call me old-fashioned. You go to university if you want to be a lawyer, a doctor.
Well, you see, this is where they probably think we've got the same mother and we've got the same mother. I sound totally elitist, and I did a BA in history and sociology, which was pointless as it turned out, and sociology was studying 5 goldfish, so I'm a hypocrite. But I just think with Blair and this, colleges of higher education, polytechnics, universities. We've had examples this morning. You can do a degree we can do a marketing degree at Keele University and you're majoring in the Beckham brand or Taylor Swift. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I do think universities should be for those people now, and I genuinely mean it's like you say, a doctor or a lawyer or just things that give something back. I don't want to label everybody the same, but there's no doubt we can say about benefits people are screwing the system, and we can say that students, and I was one of them, go to university for 3 years. I'm sure they want to believe they're going to get a better job or they're having a good time, but you're ending up in debt with no opportunity, and that is down to this government. And people just can't get away from that. But aspirations died as well. Aspirations died on the altar of the ideologies, we'll wipe your backside. No, we're not going to wipe your backside. I started cleaning cars when I was 12, and I had this discussion with my kids. They go, do you? Yeah, I did, yeah. We all had to go to work to show that we were worth anything and work our way up, right?
But of course, I started in a cafe washing up at 14. But those jobs have gone now because employers will not risk taking on and giving those Saturday jobs to young people anymore. They can't. This government has made it such that the rules and regulations around all of that stuff gone. My son started washing out site cabins on construction sites at 14. It teaches you so much. This generation that we currently have of 16 to 24-year-olds, they're not working. They're told that their sexuality is up for question.
Oh, don't get me
they
on
can
that.
be whatever they want to be.
Don't get me on that.
They are brainwashed at school, and the whole generation now is lying on a sofa being anxious.
Well, listen,
what have we done?
Let me tell you something. My daughter Ava is just landed in Texas. I told this story yesterday because I love you and I want to tell you this. So I rang her. She's in Texas working Camp America for 3 months. So proud of her, right? And I say to her, how's it going? She's fine. And I'm allowed to say this as a dad before anybody gets offended. I said, any men? That's fine. She went, not really. And I went, why? And she went, well, I'm working with 13 women. And I went, right. And she went, 4 identify as men and 3 identify as furries. 4 women... I mean, honestly, you can call me old-fashioned. If any of my kids identified as a furry, cat litter tray outside. That's it. You're not coming in. Honestly, ridiculous, don't you think?
Utterly ridiculous. We have to get back to some common sense. But my observation of that is who is filling these children's heads with these ideas. And we know in this country, Jeremy, we know that in primary schools, children are being taught that if you're not happy as a little boy, you can be a little girl and you might be happier. This is primary school children are being taught this. It's an absolute disgrace, and that will all go under reform government. We get back to absolute basic common sense education. This is nuts. We are creating a generation that doesn't know what they identify as.
You can't say nuts, you'll upset the squirrel population. Don't be so unfair, Sarah Pochin. Listen, great, I respect you enormously and thank you so much indeed. So you're already in the Commons today, very busy, yeah?
I've got a very busy day today. Yes, so I am already in my office and all set to start the day. You are a lovely start to the day as always, Jeremy.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much indeed. The brilliant Sarah Pochin, Reform MP for Runcorn and Aylesbury, 8:20. On the back of what we just said about kids, to take a small break and say good morning, Oliver William Robin Carl. He's in the car with his mother and his sister Rissy. He likes rugby. He's going into school now. I had to go and buy him a Rubik's Cube yesterday. He can do that in about 2 minutes. He's a genius. Have a good day, mate. We'll see you later. Lots of love. Right, 8:20 coming next. Talks breakfast presenter / reporter / legend Samara Gill is here with an exclusive for you. We're coming right back.
What they're looking for is £6 billion by the end of this Parliament. Some of the other things that they said they're going to cut to fund that is transport projects, key infrastructure projects. And actually, instead of that, I think you should go to the welfare bill. To your point, the working age welfare bill is going up by £40 billion between now and the end of the Parliament. I think a much better source of funds than transport, which brings growth and connectivity to our communities. If not, you will see some of these crucial areas be squeezed in order to fund what is undeniably a priority now, defence spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:23. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is, of course, Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, the home of the alarm clock Britain, the home of... I haven't seen this woman for ages. Where have you been, Samara Gill?
I've been on the channel. I've been in all the different places. But...
You've been in the channel? What, an illegal boat?
Ooh,
Why have you been in the channel?
Maybe. Might have something cooking for you.
Oh. She is the lady of the exclusive 0344 499 1000 if you want to be on the show between now and 10. You can, of course, text us on 87222. I don't know why there's such a spring in my step and my hat is at a jaunty angle today. I don't know why.
Like a leprechaun or something, yeah.
A leprechaun's a little Irish thing. A little Irish thing, a little leprechaun now. I'm not that short. Anyway, you have an exclusive. Listen, pin, whatever you're doing, on the school run, whatever, pin back your logos. This is great work. What are we talking?
Well, this is really interesting because I think it sort of continues the Henry Nowak horror story, and it shows just how institutionally DEI and inclusivity and all these different courses that we spend millions of pounds on per year have corrupted the police system. And I spoke to this guy who was barred from the police force because he asked a question about Islam during a diversity training session. Let's have a listen to what happened to him.
What's his name?
His name is Luke Salmons.
Have a listen to this, my friends. This is a clip.
The station that he worked at to engage with him further, and yet now all of a sudden there's this big issue in apparently the conversation that we had, and that was it. I was basically told to leave the police station.
They didn't give you any exact thing you'd said. They just didn't like the way that you were asking questions about Islam.
Well, they didn't even specifically say about Islam. They didn't give me a clue as to, to what I'd supposedly said or done that was wrong. It was a training course, and I asked relevant questions about the training matter in order to learn, in order so that we can best serve the public. Apparently, asking questions about Islam and other things is wrong if it doesn't fit the narrative that they want to push on the course. And they don't want to know.
How frightening is that?
They don't want to know. And I think this is a guy who wasn't just a police officer or a PCSO. He actually had a glittering record. He'd won commendations. He'd dealt with some really tricky situations brilliantly. He'd been awarded for that. And he goes on this course and he gets barred because he asked a very simple question about how to deal with Hamas and Palestine while the marches were going on. Wow. It's even worse. And he actually, the course was taken by a Muslim sergeant, and he had a chat with the Muslim sergeant. Everything seemed fine. He asked to go for a coffee with him. And then they searched his locker. Luke Salmons, the police officer, they found a book that was called Questioning Jihad, which is a book about how Christians can have better relationships with Muslim people and understand them more. Yeah. It was written by a New York Times best-selling author, so it's not exactly some extremist manifesto. And they found that book and used it as evidence against him and basically barred him from being in the police force. He now can't even work there. Because of Christian Concern, which is a great charity, they were able to help him. He had his case eventually overturned, but he was put through 9 months of hell for asking a single question on one of those DEI courses. So it's a really interesting insight into what goes on in the police force and what created the culture that then contributed to the murder of Henry Nowak.
I haven't seen you since that. We were reporting it on Talk on the Breakfast Show a full 8 hours before any of the mainstream media. They were talking about employment figures, and I just. There's a lot of people who criticised Farage for standing up. Actually, I thought when he stood up, he was responding to the pulse of what people in this country were feeling, and that. I said this straight away, and you could see people were like that. Now everybody's saying it. I would just love to know whether, if the Sikh gentleman had been stabbed by Henry Nowak, a white young boy, there would have been mass outrage. I found out that 6 years ago, after George Floyd, a career criminal who stuck a knife into the belly of a pregnant woman. I don't like how he died, and I'm glad his coppers were brought to justice. Fact, absolutely said.
Yeah, quite a lot of fentanyl in his system too, though, when he died.
Everybody took the knee. Our current Prime Minister took the knee. Footballers, actors, whatever. There was a minute's silence, Samara, in the Commons and in the Lords 6 years ago. I've asked every politician since I've had him on the last year. What about Henry Nowak, right? But the police, right, we can talk. And I had Blexley on that morning and he was apoplectic. This is from the top. This is ideology. Kemi Badenoch today saying she wants to drive identity politics out of the police, schools and whatever. But the fact of the matter is there was also mass incompetence. How you arrive as a copper and go, a bloke says he stabbed. This doesn't matter the colour of his skin. He says he stabbed. Check it, for Christ's sake. I don't think you are. They have to face the wrath. But you talk about the wider picture, and the wider picture is, are they going into situations blind? There was a police... Did you see the police chief's thing? He said, we cannot treat everybody the same. Colour blindness, it's extraordinary, because you then end up, quite rightly, as Farage said, thinking... What, are you going to be treated differently if you're from a different ethnic group? That's a fact.
Well, yeah, the Telegraph, Alison Pearson actually got a leaked message from someone from that police force.
That's the poor lady that was arrested for daring to criticise somebody in her paper.
She got a leaked memo from Southampton Police that said that they were told that you must deal with different races and different ethnicities differently depending on how you see fit. And then, of course, we had the brilliant Sunday Times report that actually revealed that police tried to issue a statement during the murder trial to counter what it called misinformation.
You mean they knew what was coming and they thought they'd try and deny the legal process? That sums up Hampshire Constabulary nicely, doesn't it?
Correct. And they also tried to paint Henry as the aggressor before the trial had even gone. So you can see the absolute, as you really rightly point out, the rot within these institutions and the way that... And unfortunately, when I spoke to Luke Salmons, this police officer, I empathise with him because those on the front lines, I do have time for. You know, they're the ones who actually are quite sensible. They know what they're doing. Of course. And most of the time, majority of the time, they're under very high pressure situations and they deal with them very swimmingly. But it's the pen pushers and the bureaucracy at the top and those who have never served on the front lines that are making all the decisions and that make it absolutely impossible for these people to do their job. And as Farage really rightly said, that's where it's created a culture whereby racism and a racist comment was treated more seriously than a murder. And that's the place we're in right now.
And I agree with you. And the problem is, I mean, did you hear the comment about Farage in the Parliament that he gave me in the exclusive? He said that he literally sat there and 650 of them bayed. He knew it was coming. And as he left, the oldest man in the Commons, who I won't name because it wouldn't be right, whispered to him, Farage, dear boy, looks like you've lost the House but won the country. Because I think he probably should have. I think he should have said his bit about the violence. I get that. I'll take that criticism for him. But I just think that we have a situation now, whether they're paralysed, there was incompetence as well with those coppers, but whether they're paralysed, this DEI crap has infiltrated everything. And we got to a point, right, where there was, before you were born, not before I was born, obviously, in the 70s and 80s, there was undoubtedly racism in the police. Let's just nail that. I'll argue that with anybody. And things needed to be done. But we've gone so far the other way. I said this the other day and I got criticised, so I'll say it again. The boss of one of the biggest television networks in the land told me the other day, and I quote, that if you're 23, 4 or 5, you come out of university with a degree in journalism and you're white and middle class, you got no hope. That is appalling indictment of where we're at. That has got to a point where box ticking has absolutely superseded ability. It's ridiculous.
And Brits treated like second-class citizens in their own country. I mean, it's appalling. You're completely right. Let's just, I mean, Luke Salmons actually backs up everything we've said. Let's just run the clip of what he had to say about the DEI culture.
Institutional failure within the training, within the core that's been around this DEI and other things that needs to change so officers can do their job without fear and use their discernment without being scared of, you know, being called racist or whatever.
And he was thrown out. And did he win his appeal or lost his appeal? He's out the police. He's done.
He won his appeal, but I think it scarred him enough to not want to work there. He now works on rehoming homeless people. So he's a very, very good guy. You can see that he hasn't got a bad bone in his body and definitely not a racist
But because he dared to ask during a DEI training, how should I deal with Hamas? He was seen as anti-Islam or whatever. But this is the same ideology that said, and I don't... You know, the problem is, Samara, there will be people who go, oh, well, you're talking far right. The Unite March in London, right? As we saw in Southampton, there will be a few thugs, as there are at Just Stop Oil and everything else, who are out. And I have no time for those mindless thugs because they do nothing for what the main common sense person is trying to achieve in this country. But the police sent 4,000 people with riot shields to look after the Unite March, and the Palestinian March was allowed to walk along and shout and spew vile chants to my friends in the Jewish community saying you don't deserve to live. There's no balance anymore. And if you can't... can you imagine me on a DEI course? Can you imagine if News UK said we're going to run a DEI course? I'm gone. I'm gone, man.
I think the building is run on enough common sense, and I think we all respect each other, and we have people of all ethnicities in our team behind us. And we don't need any of that. It actually creates more division. And
but I don't know whether they ever speak to anybody from a different ethnic background. I know I keep saying this about the guy that picks me up at night from Bangladesh who came here 30, 40 years ago with his dad. And his dad said to him and his brothers, you learn the language, you integrate, you appreciate the opportunity and you build a business. They've built a fabulous taxi business. He's more hacked off about illegal migrants than I am because he did it properly and he's British and I'm proud to be a friend of his because he pays his taxes and doesn't take the mickey.
Absolutely. My own dad is from the region where all the Sikhs come from in India, and he's the one who's most enraged about this. He said, I do feel white hot rage. He was saying the misquote.
You're not allowed to feel...
he said that he felt that about what happened to Henry Nowak as someone who is part of the Sikh community. So
all I can think about with that poor boy is the last thing he heard, and it leaves me cold. all that he heard, the last thing was them reading his rights. Not his last rights, his rights. It's unbelievably
And
bad.
the fact that the parents had to watch that video as well, and that there was video footage of their son dying, it's just horrific. And something that I've got in the pipeline for you is that Rhiannon White, who was murdered by an illegal migrant, her mother has come to me and said that she has repeatedly tried to reach out to Keir Starmer, and she also tried to speak to Shabana Mahmood. She tried to use Chris Philp to get to her. She's obviously, Farage has also tried to help her in this way. Starmer has completely ghosted her, completely blanked her. So has Shabana Mahmood. The Home Office has made a statement that they've said that while we share the public's anger about the broken asylum system in hotels, that is precisely why we are doing everything we can to keep dangerous offenders out of the country and close down hotels. Yet they still haven't, Starmer hasn't picked up the phone and spoken to this poor grieving mother. And his late comment about Henry Nowak, when he made many comments about Southport rioters before they were put into prison, it's a total double standard when he talks about the process that he's obsessed with. We really need to look into our leadership and say it's absolutely not good enough, and the people want something different.
Couldn't agree more. That's an amazing exclusive. Luke Salmons is his name. When's that going to be played in full?
You can watch that on YouTube now.
Good, that's fantastic, and also an exclusive about Rhiannon White coming. Thank you. We love her. Samara Gill, round of applause for a very good piece of work. 25 to 9. I need to remind you, more breaking news on Talk Breakfast, and I mentioned this earlier. I can't go into detail. I'll let you make your own assumptions because more and more is coming out. A man has been taken to hospital in northern Belfast with what the police are describing as serious injuries after a stabbing. One man has been arrested in his custody. Police attended at 10:30 last night. Independent counsellor Pat McCusker said it was horrific and terrifying. Residents witnessed the accident. One lady said she had to go to hospital herself because of the stress of witnessing such a brutal attack. This is going to unfold. I'm not going to say anything. I'm sure you can make your own mind up with that. We'll let you know more, but that is a breaking news story from Belfast. Talk Breakfast, 24 to 9. Nobody ever says that, by the way. Why did I say that? I hate DJs today. Can I rewind? 24 to 9. It reminds me of the time I heard a DJ on a radio station going, it's 11 after 8 or 49 away from the big one on the Mighty FM. Sorry, back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 22 minutes to 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. JK on breakfast, and as ever, if you want to be on, your views on the day's news, massively important. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Thank you to Samara Gill, that amazing piece of work about Luke Salmons, a guy who dared to ask a question during police training during a DEI course about Hamas, actually, was thrown out of the police. Utterly extraordinary. Kemi Badenoch today saying she is going to pledge to drive identity politics out of public services, including the police, of course, schools and hospitals. Loads more on that. But I want to say a very good morning to a top man, former Ian Drury, what does AS Forces Chief? What does AS stand for? Air Services.
Yes, that's right.
So you were like
the chief of the defence staff. Yeah.
Fantastic, Ian Drury. Thank you so much for coming in today. An amazing article on page 10 of the Sun, which, frankly, I mean, I just look at the headline and it absolutely smacks of the truth. Starmer would rather defend handouts to scroungers than protect us from Putin. I mean, there is complete proof. Yeah. I mean, last night they ruled out cutting the benefits budget to fund what I would believe is the first and most important thing of any government, is to protect its people.
The first priority of any government is defence of the realm. And we know that the world is the more perilous place than it's been for decades. You know, Russia is constantly probing our defences to test for weaknesses.
Yeah.
China is rattling sabres in Asia, and the Middle East is in flames again. As Sir Richard Knighton, the Chief of the Defence Staff, said on over the weekend, the threats and risks are greater than at any time since the Cold War. So it's imperative we have a properly funded, properly equipped and properly manned armed forces so we can defend our territory and protect our interests.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And when you look back, and this tends to happen a lot on the show because people can't understand the naivety of, and we can't just lay this, Ian, at Starmer's door, successive governments, yeah. And they'll throw at me I spoke to Ian Duncan Smith earlier, they'll throw at me, the Cold War was upon us, and I thought it was incredibly naive, and I got very angry with Sunak in the last election because just in those final 2 weeks of the campaign, he said we need to spend 2.5 to 3% GDP. People don't like it when I say this, but we used to be our Navy was the pride of the world, our armed forces. Somebody gave me a figure the other day that our combined total of people in the three Air Force, Army and Navy is less than people who have broken into this country illegally in the last 18 months.
Absolutely true, absolutely true. I think, as we say in the article today, the Navy is now, once ruled the waves, is now a laughingstock. You're more likely to see a warship in dry dock being repaired in Portsmouth than on the high seas deterring our enemies. The Army is at its lowest smallest size since the Napoleonic Wars. But this is successive governments, as you point out, have chronically underfunded the military. Now, to be fair, Starmer seems to get this. He had a review, but we haven't had any meat on the bone. But this is it. He promises more money, but where is the money?
Well, the money is undoubtedly. I mean, I don't want to get you involved in something that you haven't read about, but today we discover a secret government report that says £28 billion in aid cash has been handed to terrorists and gangsters and charities, including in Russia and bloody the Islamic State. And you go, well, hold on a second. How much is the defence budget? Do we know? I don't know the exact figure.
It's about 55, 60 billion.
So we're giving away half of the budget to people who shouldn't have it. It's about priorities, and it's like that budgets, the welfare budget. I mean, I unashamedly, and will say, greatest invention in the modern world. Very happy to pay tax to help people who don't help themselves. I'm sick and tired of paying for lazy shirkers who should not be going, oh, I've got anxiety, I'm not going to work. Protecting this country has not been at the forefront of a government's agenda, and it most definitely should be.
It's, we learned over the weekend that they're trying to fund the increase in defence spending by trimming departments across Whitehall. That's going to be hospitals not rebuilt, classrooms not built, infrastructure projects being abandoned, but this money would be available if the government was willing to confront the elephant in the room, and that elephant is a gargantuan one. And as I write today, it's sitting there on the sofa in its pyjamas, eating biscuits, watching daytime TV and raking in a fortune in benefits. 333 billion the welfare budget is now.
Which is greater than the amount of money that Rachel Thieves gets from people who go to work and pay tax.
Absolutely.
I mean, how does that in any way make fiscal sense. And I, you know, people say, oh, you're very critical. I'd be critical of the Tories. I said it to Cameron years ago. During austerity, when he brought that in, I said this all morning, there were 34 government departments in, and they cut spending in 33, and the only one that didn't, that was increased, was foreign aid. Now, we've always been, oh, Great Britain, you know, we're the best, we do it morally, humanitarianly. But when your own country's suffering and you ain't got an army or a navy or an air force, your hospitals are creaking, your public services are crap, with the greatest of respect, and so much is wrong, police, schools, whatever, don't you have a priority? Do you have a responsibility as the government to invest in the things for the people who, sorry to say, who are paying for that?
Absolutely.
I don't understand
this is why voters and taxpayers are absolutely furious about this. But will Starmer trim the welfare budget? Of course not. You know, he loves the bask and reflected glory of the armed forces and how much he admires and how much he supports them. But will he do the right thing, make the hard choices? He won't, and he can't, because his left-wing backbenchers simply refuse to countenance any cuts to welfare.
That's because it's not explained to them, because any time I have this debate, I had one just now with Shojan Joseph, the Labour MP for Ashford, they think you're then talking about a blanket approach. They will say, what about the people who are disabled and mentally ill? Yes, I'm happy. That's the whole point of the bloody system, but they are missing out, those people, because the 2 million that are taking money away from genuine people. And honestly, and Ian Duncan Smith nailed it for me earlier when he said that if you have got anxiety and depression, not that you have to prove it anymore in a face-to-face, you can just send an email or tick a box. If you have got that, the surest, firest way of dealing with depression and anxiety is to be out amongst people doing something and occupying your mind.
Yeah, absolutely, in work. Although, you know, Labour is killing off the jobs market anyway, so...
Do you ever get to the point like me where you just wonder, I mean, I'm older than you, I'm older than everybody, but do you honestly just look at it sometimes and think, where the hell does it end?
It does, yeah. I mean, but Pat McFadden said in his email to Mandelson, which was published last week, you know, the backbenchers are constantly asking, who can we tax to give benefits to others? It's simply unsustainable. And, you know, obviously people prioritise, you know, the National Health Service and, you know, voter-friendly programmes like social welfare, but if you don't have a proper... If you can't defend the country, one day you won't have a country to...
Well, there are people who texted me this morning, which some people might not agree with. It's too late to improve defence because we're being invaded anyway by people and boats, which people don't like the word. But listen, great article. Do seriously give it a read. Page 10 of The Sun today. Ian Jury, a great article. Thank you, my friend, for coming, and I really appreciate your time this morning. 13 minutes to 9 o'clock, 0344 499 1000. Just to repeat that breaking news, because I think there's further developments we'll bring you soon. A man has been taken to hospital with severe and serious injuries following a stabbing in North Belfast. A man has been arrested, remains in custody. Independent counsel Paul McCusker, who described the attack as horrific and terrifying, said that some residents had witnessed it. One lady actually had to go to hospital herself because of the stress of witnessing something so vile. More of that throughout the day. This is Talk Breakfast.
Vardo Calacane was a 32-year-old black man living in, an immigrant but with British national status, living in Nottingham, which is a city that is roughly 50-50 in its ethnic split.
Yeah.
And he murdered 3 white people and tried to murder 3 further white people. And not once in any part of the conversation or reporting was there any racial profiling or even the question raised. What if it had been another way around?
The UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 10 to 9. More coming out about this story. Stand by. Breaking news. A man has been taken to hospital with serious injuries following a horrific stabbing in North Belfast. It was the Kinyard Avenue around 10:30 at night. A man has been detained. Independent counsellor Paul McCusker said it was the most horrific and terrifying attack anybody could ever witness. We will bring you more details when we can. From an intelligent point of view, we're not allowed to say anything at the moment, but it's definitely a story that has broken, and we will be talking more about 0344 499 1000. Loads of you trying to get involved today. Thank you. Jezza, regarding foreign aid, there's an old adage, charity begins at home, says Brian Goodwin. Jeremy, you should do accents, you're so good at it, says Kevin in East Sussex. All right, Kev, thanks. Say a very good morning. Lovely. Let's say a very good morning to Norman Brennan, former police officer, a man who went viral last week with the passion that he showed on the story of Henry Novak. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, Jeremy.
We can't talk about it in too much detail. There's a massive story starting in Belfast where a man's been attacked. I'm sure you might know something about it. If I have to jump in, that will be stuff given to me. Norman, I wanted to get you on the back of the horror of Henry Novak. We've talked about how, you know, we're being as fair as we can. This has to come from the top. It's what these officers are told. There was undoubted incompetence. I don't care what anybody tells me, you included. I don't mean that badly with the Henry Novak thing. I mean, check some kid who says he's stabbed, for God's sake. But there's a story out today in the Telegraph which, for you and I, highlights what's wrong with the police. Whilst there are criticisms continually about their performance, the story in the Telegraph today says that police hire 75 grand a year diversity officers, all whilst crime's going through the roof. Prioritising everything that's wrong, Norman, right?
Well, I think West Yorkshire have got about 10 or 15. It costs them about £1.2 million. I'll cut to the chase, Jeremy, because I think everyone's getting a bit piddled off now. We're going around in circles, and all we're doing is highlighting the issues that I have known and many in policing have known for decades, is that we're obsessed with diversity. We're obsessed with race action plans. And the devastation is that the public don't get the police that they deserve. They don't see it on the streets. They don't get their crimes investigated. And the obsession of appeasing certain sections of the community has taken over policing. It's a bit like the lunatics have taken over the police service. What I would want to see, Jeremy, and I'm sure you and every listener would want, is for every chief constable to send out on the streets the maximum amount of officers, black, white, gay, lesbian, tall, short. They don't give a toss. They want every available police officer out on the streets for as long as they possibly can have. They don't give a damn about the colour and the race plans, but police chiefs, and you're right, the fish rots from the top. And police chiefs, for the first time, the public see it's not your frontline cops. I speak to them daily. I was out the other day with a mate of mine who put 13 murderers away in the Met in the last year. And when I sit down and speak to him over a pint, the passion he has, he says, my team, Norman, work their socks off day in, day out. They came in on their rest days. And he tells me how hard they work. And I just wish you, Jeremy, and everybody else could be filming what he says. This is what frontline cops want to do.
Get him on. Speak to Dino. We'll get him on. The point that I'm making, and I'm with you, mate. Try doing this every bloody day. I come in every morning at 6 o'clock, and I think, oh, it's going to be a good day. I'm not going to be moaning about broken Britain or the police service or immigration or the National Health Service or anything else that's completely screwed under successive governments. I agree. We just talk about it. That's because no politicians actually stood up and said, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to drag every single chief constable into 10 Downing Street and tell them. I mean, call me old-fashioned, Norm, right? I'm sort of schooled in the Norman Brennan, Peter Bleksley, school of thought, which is the more men and women you have on the streets, the more intel you get, because that's how you do copper work, isn't it? And that leads to nailing people and putting them in prison. But we're too busy, it seems, ticking boxes. We keep talking about ticking bloody boxes. Did you hear, I don't know if you were listening, did you hear Samara's exclusive that's now online with Luke Salmons? He was at a police training course and he dared to ask during a diversity course, quote, I'd just like some advice about how I should deal with, a Palestinian march and Hamas, because these people are terrorists, taken out and thrown out. Won his appeal but can't be asked with the police anymore. A man who'd done 11 years. Absolutely unbelievable.
But why doesn't anyone hold these bloody police chief constables to account?
But that's politicians, or they tell me that it's not politicians. Who's in charge of the police? Oh, I know. The police crime commissioners. Yeah.
So are we ever going to break this circle? As I said, we know what the problems are. Peter tells you, I've told you that for decades. And I'll describe what we're like now in policing. All these direct entry people from Sainsbury's and the rest of it, clueless on policing. They're putting them in at high levels. We pander to the black community. We pander to the DEI. We pander to everybody except the bloody public that we should be policing and looking after. And I've often described it, Jeremy, and I'm sick and tired as usual, is that I've said the police service are on life support. The family are now round the bed. It's got that serious. Do we call in the priest, or is there any hope? Because the only hope that we can have is if the government get off their asses, get rid of the PCCs, what they're doing, get rid of every chief constable that isn't up to scratch, and starts recruiting men and women that are leaders. They don't pander to the black community, George Floyd's or anybody else. They pander to the communities that they police by putting officers on the streets, investigating their crime. Is that too much for the public to ask?
No, it's not. And I think the argument last week about two-tier policing is best summed up by what happened after the appalling riots in Southport. Nobody liked to see that. Starmer, for a man who'd said that we have, no space in jail, we have no space in court, and we haven't got enough police officers, put about 6,000 police officers. It was all on camera on the streets. Within 24 hours, these people were tried on camera, all labelled far-right, and thrown in jail. And by the way, I've no time for those thugs, but he labelled everybody far-right, but in other instances doesn't do anything. So I'm not quite sure where how much influence a politician has or doesn't have. If I was the Prime Minister of this country, that's one of the first things I'd do. I'd do something about our defence and I'd do something about law and order. I think it's an utter disgrace that we now live in a society that seemingly makes excuses for the perpetrators of crime instead of the victims. I think the police have been handed a really bad situation. I'm sure there is incompetence. There's incompetence in any business. But if you go into a situation where you don't bloody well know what you're able or not able to do for fear of losing your job, what are you expected to do? We're a laughingstock, Norm. You and I, a miserable couple of gits. We're a laughingstock. We really are.
Can I just finish off,
1 minute.
Jeremy? The lunatics have not just taken over the asylum, they've taken over our streets. Put the lunatics back in the asylum, get the right people overseeing that, and make sure that they're securely locked away. And let's get back to basic policing. Let's get back to basic politics, where the public is the main concern of being protected and reassured. Is that too much to ask? I keep on asking.
Not at all. We love you, Norm. Thank you so much indeed. Former cop, top cop as well, Norman Brennan, live and exclusive on Talk Breakfast. We're here till 10. Julia from 10, Ian from 1, Kevin back from his holidays looking tanned from 4 p.m. 0344 499 1000. If you want to make a call, leave a voice note, text to 87222. Carl Turner, who got thrown out for the Labour Party for standing up to the dreadful Keir Starmer. He's on next, but we say a very good morning to Rob.
Morning, Jez. Just looking at some of the guests this morning, Ian Duncan-Smith is correct in some of the things he says. The British people are very capable of anything. They've proven that. Shows you what we're capable of to overcome a terrible foe. The problem in this country is that the people who have voted for Conservative Party, Labour Party, nobody's ever done what the people have asked. they let us down time and time again. But on immigration, Tony Blair started the whole mass importation without asking anybody. Boris Johnson, very sadly, did the same thing with 3 million people. The Conservatives don't deserve another chance. Just because Badenoch has some good days at question time, she doesn't deserve another chance yet. The only person who deserves a chance is somebody new, and I think that's Nigel Farage. Do exactly as you say, stick to your guns, that's what we want. We want to see it change big time. These fools just keep letting people come through the doors. You can see the demographics changing everywhere, and not for the better.
You know, you have to remember that Peter Murrell has been the chief executive of the SNP for nigh on a quarter of a century. He's been with Nicola Sturgeon since 2003. She said that she didn't have access to his personal records. They had separate bank accounts, so we can take, well, what you want from all of that. The list that you gave is unbelievable. 124,000 in a camper van, Fortnum and Mason's picnic hampers, a couple of lawnmowers, one for 3,000 quid, 3 Davic Savile umbrellas, £970. The list goes. Oh, a wine coaster. I needed to look up what a wine coaster was. 3,500 quid. So the list goes on.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, serial murder, really depraved crimes, it's quite clear to me that the usual considerations around whether you should be lenient because of this context, whether or not there should be more room for rehabilitation in that context, just don't apply. From the simple commonsensical basis that if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
But this is the thing,
I don't want to take that risk.
If these kids genuinely, you know, and they are kids, everyone involves a kid. I mean, it's just absolutely travesty. If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the street.
So there's now a label for children who skip school. You know, parents can't sort it out. In the old days, I used to think that skipping school was you know, against the law. You know, and parents used to be taken to court. Well, no longer anymore. They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home. Again, I keep saying, you know, on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, universities. Let's get everyone going to university. Well, I think a fundamental job of education is to prepare children for the society they're going to live in a positive way, i.e. prepare them for a job. You've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
Henry Novak's last words were, "I can't breathe," as he was handcuffed, having been stabbed not only in the front but in the back as well, you know. Okay, he stabbed him in the chest twice, stabbed him in the face once, stabbed him in the back of the leg twice. I mean, what an attack. Let's wait and see what sentence this vile piece of garbage gets. Of course, none of it of which will bring back dear Henry. May his soul rest in peace.
It's just so shocking, Pete, you know. I mean, this is... We're so used to criticising the police for mistakes. This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brit is 3/4 of the way through, you lucky people. On the way, Carl Turner, independent MP for Hull East, thrown out of the Labour Party because he dared to stand up to the evil Keir Starmer. Loads to talk about. But you know what? When you do this show, right, every day, you do it early, you tend to go home and have a kit. But I think I'm going to start drinking, obviously responsibly. But I think the truth is, it's so depressing. And what better that this is amazing, by the way. Some days I walk into this building and I look and it says Chris Evans today has Shania Twain, Jeremy Kyle has Matt Vickers. Talk Sport have superseded any of that. They've got their own lager. They've got their own lager to celebrate the World Cup. They've teamed up with Meantime to create a lager just in time for the World Cup. It's fantastic. It's called So Good. It's called So Good. Be poured in all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. So seriously, if you're watching the action this summer from the World Cup, which of course starts on Thursday, down the pub in the afternoon or late with your mates, I'm not sure, you will be able to get So Good lager from TalkSport in the meantime. You can go online, actually, talksport.com/So Good. You see what they've done there? because that's lager. It's so good, isn't it? You know, you must be 18 plus. So Henry, my son, no, not allowed. So Good Lager, TalkSport. See, they've got a lager. Chris Evans has got Shire what are they? Muck Twain. What have I got? Carl Turner. Good morning. How are you?
Jeremy, I was just letting the postman in with a parcel. So
Yeah,
excuse me.
I was just saying. I feel like I'm not trying to diss how important you are, Carl, but this is how my life's disappeared down the plug hole. I've walked in here today. Chris Evans, next door studio that way. He's got Shania Twain. TalkSport that way. They've launched their own lager, So Good Lager with Meantime. That's because of the World Cup. And what have I got? You and a biscuit. Brilliant.
Never mind, Jeremy, never mind.
You're selling it to me like a politician, Carly. Mate, welcome to the show. There's so much you want to talk about, but the thing that's completely and utterly wound up the audience today, which I know will also wind you up, this is, by the way, not down to the Labour Party. This has been between 2015 and 21-22. £28 billion in cash was given away in foreign aid, Carl, to criminals, gangsters, Russia and the Islamic State by the last government. £28 billion. Now, at the risk, I know that you're a nice man, nicer than me. I want our Prime Minister, whoever it is, to do a Donald Trump. I'm going to play the speech he made when he went, I'm cutting all this ridiculous spending, and it was funny. This is what we need Starmer to do. Have a watch, peeps.
$40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million.
Carl, I know that's a joke, but it is utterly ludicrous to say to the British people, is it not? Your taxes are higher than ever, your food bills, your energy costs, your public services are creaking. We've got no control of immigration. There's crime rife on the streets. But you know what? It's all right. We've given away $28 billion to things abroad. There's humanitarianism and there's utter madness, pal, isn't there?
Well, look, yeah, I mean, look, you can't. How can anybody argue with it, Jeremy? It's ridiculous. A lot of this was COVID grants, I think, during the COVID period. But, I mean, how on earth can it be justified? I'm surprised at it because the Tories were supposedly being careful with the taxpayers' money. But look, if it's true, this story, and I think it might be...
It's a government secret report, Carl. It's not a newspaper.
It's scandalous. It's scandalous if
It is.
it's right. But it needs looking at, and it needs... You know, it needs this government, the Labour government, to take action and to find out where every bean went.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when you lot came to power, before you know what I'm saying, they kept going on about this black hole, and I argued, you know, if you've got an 11 billion black hole or a 22 billion pound black hole, what you don't do is give your union mates a 20% pay rise day one, blah, blah, blah. But if this was hidden... This is an absolute outrage, and anybody in the Tory party should be questioning quite how or why this was allowed or covered up. But it goes back, doesn't it, to that old thing about, and I think it's really relevant to today, really, that we've always been the country that seemingly did the right thing, but we can't afford it anymore, can we? Is it not fair to say, however unpalatable this might be for some people, that actually right now charity begins at home, doesn't it, Carl?
Well, that's the saying that people use on the doorstep, Jeremy. Why are we giving this money to that money, and they've got... sort of, you know, they've got plans to send spacecrafts into space, but they're getting money for nothing from the British taxpayer. People get very angry about this stuff, Jeremy. Now, if the money is used to prevent people leaving the countries, fleeing countries, because of what they call a crisis, where they need to claim Article 8 rights to get into the UK or whatever else they're claiming, then that's a different matter. But if it's just money that's been spaffed away, to use Boris Johnson's term, we need to be looking seriously at it, because the taxpayer is getting really cheesed off. People get up in the morning and go to graft, and they expect governments of any political colour to do the right thing with the hard-earned cash that they're paying into the Treasury.
Completely.
And if it's been If it has been spaffed away, we need to be getting very angry about it as a government.
Word of the morning, thank you, Carl, spaffed. I love that, spaffed away, that's my favourite word. The other main news story today, sort of running hand in hand with that, is this ongoing argument about the welfare budget bill as against... I mean, it's eclipsed for the first time in fiscal history. We now actually give away more than we do get in to the exchequer through people who pay tax through work, which is in itself, again, utterly damn ludicrous. But just to talk about the Labour Party, you know, 332 billion is the welfare benefits. Whenever I bring this subject up, everybody on the Labour side, I had Shoan Joseph earlier, wouldn't even answer the question. They go, it's now more, right? It's not right. And he goes, I know, but it's... Of course it's important that we look after people who are ill, mentally ill, disabled, or long-term ill. Absolutely, and I'm really happy. But why will the Labour Party, the backbenchers, the Parliamentary Labour Party, I'm told, you'll know, why will they not answer this question head-on? There are hundreds of thousands of people screwing the system, using the excuse of anxiety or whatever to not work. They don't have to be seen since COVID face-to-face. They can tick a box or fill in whatever. That is an absolute what's-it take out of all the hard workers. It's taking money out of people who genuinely need it. And apparently, last night, ministers, fearful again of the Parliamentary Labour Party, have ruled out cutting the benefits budget to pay for the much-needed money that we need on defence, which was, yes, the Tories again. So they're going to rush around and try and find savings in other cabinet jobs or cabinet departments because our cash-strapped armed forces need income. Get rid of the people who are screwing the benefits system, no?
I think, look, the stuff you say is exactly the stuff people say on the doorstep. It truly is. And look, I look at it. There is a 332 billion welfare benefits bill, which is just bursting at the seams, let's be honest about that. But though there's only, I think, 6 billion identified as fraudulent claims. So we mustn't be sort of saying everybody who's on benefit is on the fiddle.
How much is fraudulent claims?
Say 6 billion. I think you're...
No, I think that's not enough. Sorry, can't have that.
I think that's what they say. I think that's what the official stats say. 6 billion of it is fraudulent. So let's be careful about where the money's going. I agree with that. But look, I've got an example. I was doing a surgery a couple of weeks ago, family of 4, mum and dad and 2 kids. Mum was the carer for the daughter was the carer for mum, dad was the carer for the kid, and the kid was the carer for dad. And I said to the family, look, what on earth's going on here? How is it possible to be involved in this sort of situation whereby parents aren't grafting and haven't worked for more than a decade, and you're all paid to look after each other? What on earth's going on? What support was my question, Jeremy? What support is the system providing to get you guys back into work? And they said very little. So I think governments of all political persuasions have let people, not a massive amount of people, but let people survive on benefits because, frankly, it's easier. It's easier.
Easier for who?
It's easier for the system to just say, oh, yeah, well, they'll be paid benefits and just put it
Do you believe that illegal migrants, people who come into this country illegally, should be able to survive on benefits?
No, I don't. Absolutely not. I think people who come into this country who are claiming asylum because they're truly fleeing from situations which is, you know, dreadful and putting their lives at risk, I think they ought to be provided with support.
But how many illegal migrants who come to this country on a boat are fleeing persecution? I heard that dreadful Darren Jones some months ago on Newsnight saying, well, I've looked at the boats and they're all women and children. He obviously can't see anything. He's the Secretary of State to the Prime Minister, so probably that's why he said it. But, of course, we've always based ourselves on doing right. But I think we've gone so far the other way, and I think it has to be acknowledged. I think we have to acknowledge that, you know, that thing you just said, Carl, right? I've never said this to you, right? But yeah, sure. If you're fleeing a war-torn country, but here's a question for you. There's 2 things I worry about with that. One is, if I was fleeing a war-torn country, I'd take Mrs. Carl and my kids with me. I wouldn't leave them behind to be bombed to death. Plus, the first time I got to a country, there weren't bombs raining down on my head. I'd go, oh, thank God for that. How good? No, I'm going to keep going to the United Kingdom. I'm going to the United Kingdom because they wipe my backside better than anybody else. That's the truth. That's the absolute truth.
The points you make again are fair, but when you speak to these people who are claiming asylum, they say they come to the country first to establish a home for them to apply under the legislation which applies to them claiming asylum to bring the families here under Article 8, which is the right to a family life. Now, that's a part of the problem, Jeremy. Now, I'm not sort of saying we ought to get rid of the European Convention on Human Rights and
I
come out
am.
of it like,
I am.
Well, I'm not like Belarus and Russia. I'm not saying that. But
Oh,
what
come
I'm
on, it's not... No, I'm not having that. That's the old adage, Belarus and Russia. Every single European country sticks a finger up to the ECHR and then deals with it. We bend to it because our Prime Minister, a man you fell out with, is obsessed with human rights law.
What I am saying, Jeremy, is Article 8 is not an absolute right. Now, I speak of a lawyer as a lawyer.
Yeah.
I've been working with a guy called Professor John Cooper, King's Counsel. I think he's been on your program.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
He's a leading human rights silk. And I've been discussing with him the ways that we can work with the Human Rights Act to curtail those rights to a family life. Legislation so that we can stop some of this immigration, which is not based on asylum, really. It's about economic migration.
Absolutely.
And that's the stuff a Labour government should be doing.
Quite
because
right.
we don't exist for this stuff. People on the doorsteps, the reason people are turning to reform, right? Trade union members are turning to reform because they look at the Labour Party and they say, goodness me, what on earth has happened to that lot?
Well, look at Gary Smith. See Gary Smith, the leader of the GMB union, a union that's affiliated to Labour, that pays money to the Labour coffers every year, came out over the weekend and said, I nearly fell off my bleeding chair when we came in yesterday. He said, net zero is economic madness. Most of the policies of this government are wrong, and most of my members are now looking towards reform. It's not something, he said, that I would look at, but I understand why they are, because they are now the party of working people and the Labour Party isn't.
And that's a massive problem for us.
Damning.
It's a huge problem. It is, it's damning. It's a damning indictment of the Labour Party over the last sort of 10 years, I would suspect.
Yeah.
Where we're into the frothy coffee drinking, Guardian reading, liberal lefty fraternity, leaving my people in Eastall who get up in the morning, get on the bike, go to graft, work hard, and have very little at the end of the month, looking and wondering where to go for the political party that might make their lives better. And I'm afraid to say, at the moment, it ain't the Labour Party, which is why if there was a general election next week, they'd be giving me my cards. End of subject. If we don't want to win elections, we crack on and do what we've been doing. If we want to win elections, we have to have the answers for working, ordinary, hard-working people. The Labour Party, the clue ought to be in the name, Labour.
Yeah, I agree. You made a couple of references to on the doors. This is a personal question. Tell me to start off. Since you lost the whip and you became an independent, what's the reaction of the constituency to you? Do they go good on you for standing up to him? Do they say, how could you possibly taint the great Labour Party? Or is support on your side because they understand the frustrations that you feel?
I mean, I'd say the Mickey out the whips. I'll say, well, crack on, keep me suspended. You're doing me a favour. I'm 10% more popular now than I ever was with the Labour whip. That's the truth.
Are you?
Honestly more popular. People say, well done for standing up to Starmer. Well done for saying a policy of jury curtailment is wrong. Well done for speaking the truth on policy about bursting welfare benefit bills. Well done for just saying what you actually think for a change. And you know what? It's fairly liberating. I don't think I'd win as an independent candidate, Jeremy. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. I wouldn't win, frankly. I'm a Labour MP because I wear the Labour rosette. But the tragedy for the Labour Party, and this is what they've got to wake up to, if we continue in the vein that we're going in, the Labour Party will not exist in areas like Hull. It won't exist in areas like Doncaster, Barnsley, the north of the country. It will not exist in the Red Wall anymore. That's what Burnham has got to get a grip of, if in fact he becomes the MP for Makerfield.
When you say they won't exist, who would wipe them out? Reform?
Reform at the minute, massively. I mean, Restore's starting to make a bit of a difference locally, but not by much of a percentage. I think it's making a difference in Makerfield, and I think it's eating into the Reform support there. But that's because the leader of the party is campaigning hard, as I understand it.
Now you're already you're already talking about Burnham as this is a subject that fascinates me. I mean, he's got some front. He stood twice and failed, but he seems to be everybody's cup of tea at the moment. Overnight, he's pledged to, this is brilliant, this just sends me to the tower and back. He's pledged to make greater use of immigration detention centres. Yes, I bet you have, Andy. We've had the debate about should he waltz in, can he be Prime Minister, blah, blah, blah. Whatever happens in Makerfield, it can't have been very... it can't have escaped people's notice that this guy makes no secret of his ambitions. In fact, I thought the BBC did a very good setup the other day in Question Time, giving him the chance to announce it. That was obviously pro him. Do you think the country will buy Andy Burnham if he's elected?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the truth is he's more popular than most politicians, frontline politicians. I think Burnham is charismatic and he is popular. Look, he's the type of geezer, honestly, Jeremy, where you and I would go for a pint and enjoy our night. You know, that's the truth. Same as Boris Johnson. If I was asked to go for a pint, you pick from, who would you go with, Keir Starmer or Boris Johnson? I'll say Boris Johnson every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. Why?
Yeah.
Because he's charismatic. You come out the pub laughing, you've had a good night. Burnham's a bit like that. He's down to earth. He's a bit like a normal person, right? He can talk about football, rugby league. He can have a bit of a laugh with you.
But
so
can he? But can he? Like Sunak couldn't. Can he convince the people that the debacle of the last 23 months can ever be reversed? Because here's my point that I keep making. If he wins Makerfield, if he challenges Starmer, if he becomes the Prime Minister, three big ifs, I don't, and this is where I love... You said you love Great Britain people. I'd never lose faith in the British public, because one thing for sure will happen. If he gets in and he moves to the left, the British people, in their millions, will continue to not shut up and say, you haven't got a mandate, mate. And then he's going to be in a terrible position, because we both know if he calls an election, the Labour Party will be decimated. And if he limps on for 3 years, any time he tries to do anything, he'll be absolutely taken to the shredders. That's the point. I don't know Andy Burnham, the man. It's not for me to judge. I'm just telling you what I know of the situation. And, you know, if he ends up in Downing Street, there will be millions of people who go, you haven't got there correctly. And the Tories did it, and I've been very straight. Look back at all my programmes. Don't get me wrong, at the next election, you have to decide to stand as an independent or a Labour. You can't defect mid-term. And I don't, you got thrown out. You didn't go, oh, I'm joining the Liberal Democrats. I think that's fundamentally wrong. I've said that to Reform candidates. I've said it to Labour candidates. But this guy I mean, he's the cock of the North, we know that, but he is preening a bit. He's talking as if he is going to be the next Prime Minister, isn't he?
Well, I think he will be the next PM, but I was about to say to you, part of the reason he is popular is because he's not been in the cabinet associated with the nonsense that's been going on for 2 years.
Yeah.
You turning on this, you turning on that, marching MPs uphill and back down them again. Jury trial curtailment, by the way, nobody's talking about that anymore. Why? Because Lammy knows there's no chance of getting it through Parliament, so we're just supposed to pretend nothing. It's never been said before. We all go away and pretend we didn't hear about it. The fact that Carl Turner got suspended as a result of it, all of that's not got to be mentioned anymore. What a disgrace this Labour Party has become. I'm embarrassed by us. I was embarrassed by David Lammy at the weekend when he was talking about the tragic death of George Floyd in America, and as opposed to what happened to that bless his corn-sucked young man, Novak case. And, you know, the fact that Lammy was just dreadfully, embarrassingly hypocritical about the whole thing. I was ashamed. Honestly, I was. It's not the Labour Party I joined when I was 13 years of age. I've not recognised it since Keir Starmer's been in the leadership position, I'll tell you that. I recognised it more under Corbyn. And let me tell you about Jeremy Corbyn. I didn't want him as leader. Why? Because I didn't think he'd win an election ever. Ever. That's the reason I didn't want him. But I tell you what you got with Jeremy Corbyn. Truth.
My old man, who's sadly no longer here, he remembers the last election he was alive for, which was when Theresa May merely squeaked through. And he said to me, I don't agree with anything that man stands for, and I never vote for him. But you have to respect the fact that he stood up and had the balls to stand on what he believed in and didn't deviate from it. Quick question to finish about Andy Burnham. If he wins, if he challenges, if he becomes the PM, will you be reinstated? Will Labour be going back to what you believe Labour is, or would you need convincing? Have you spoken to Andy Burnham at all?
I've spoken to Andy regularly, and Andy Burnham will have me back into the Labour Party within 5 minutes of being the leader of the Labour Party. In fact, I suspect he'll be making arguments even before he's elected leader, because I think there needs to be an election in the Labour Party for the leadership. And I also think if our manifesto changes significantly under a new leader, we should go to the country. Because if you don't do those things, Jeremy, you are not forgiven again. And that's why the Tories lost so badly.
Completely agree.
Rishi Sunak, who is a very capable politician, an incredibly bright guy, came along too late to save the Tories. That's the truth of what happened. But if the manifesto changes significantly, we don't have a presidential system, that's true. And you are allowed to change leader mid-flight. But if the policy that you went to the country with changes substantially, you ought to call an election, and I think that's what might happen. That might happen.
Good man. Listen, you've given me the word of the day, spaffed. You've admitted that you and I should have a pint with Andy Burnham and Boris Johnson, but most of all, you're a good man. We thank you so much indeed. Carl Turner, independent MP for Hull, thrown out. Well, not allowed the whip anymore for Labour, talking there about Andy Burnham. But, of course, the Makerfield by-election, we have to do the job professionally and correctly, so at 9:25. Here is your list of candidates for June the 18th. Jake Austin stands for the Liberal Democrats. Count Binface for his own party, Count Binface Party. Andy Burnham, of course, the Labour Party. Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party. John Dyer for the Independents. Ed Gemmell, the Climate Party. Paul Gould, the Independent. Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party. Robert Kenyon, Reform UK. Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild. Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain. Sarah Wakefield, the Green Party. Peter Ward, Rejoin the EU. And Michael Stanley, the Conservative Party. That's your list of candidates.
I'm angry, Julia. The family are angry. Everybody who has seen that video or even heard the story understandably will be angry. But the job of politicians is not to tell people, go out and be angry. People have a right to protest. I think that actually people coming out and showing solidarity with the family, showing they're upset about it, sends a signal to political leaders. What it shouldn't be is us whipping up people's rage.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:28. We're live across the UK. Still to come this hour, Emma Webber. Her son Barnaby, one of 3 killed by the horrendous Calicane in Nottingham. And actually, we have to say that they're holding a press conference. They held a press conference after the conclusion of the inquest. She's loads to say. She's been a regular on the show. We'll get Emma Webber on the show. You get your calls as well. I just want to repeat that breaking news. Very relevant, difficult for me to go into too much detail at the moment, but this is a story that will unfold across the day on Talk. A man has been taken to hospital with severe serious injuries following a stabbing in North Belfast. One man has been arrested and remains in custody. Police attended the incident on Kinnaird Avenue at about 10:30 last night. Independent Councillor Paul McCusker, I told you this earlier, described the attack as both horrific and the most terrifying thing ever. Some residents witnessed it. One woman had to be taken to hospital because it was such a brutal attack. More details will emerge from that in Northern Ireland. 0344 499 1000. Loads to talk about. Steve, good morning.
Here's a thought. I have a great idea for a 2-tier system. Starmer will probably love it, being 2-tier Kia. We have a benefit system. So I believe that if you've paid your taxes and national insurance, then you should be entitled to full benefits. If you've never paid your tax or insurance, then you should be entitled to the absolute minimum to survive on. And that's a nice 2-tier system that would work. Great show, mate. See you later.
Good man. 0344 499 1000. Jez, a lot of common sense by Ian Duncan Smith this morning. One of my most concerns is that the more foreign people, illegals and immigrants that we allow to enter the country and letting it continue, the more we are losing our identity and British values. It's a major problem. True British person, no wonder millions of people are entering our small country because we give away so much. Vincent's in Manchester. Oh, God, he's just saying the Tories are finished. Jez, as you always say, Cammy Badenoch, I'd say right person, wrong time. Good morning, Jez, says Gary, in the formerly smelly Bridgewater. Now, the reason he said this is there used to be 2 massive towers pouring out terrible smelly stuff when I used to work down there. I haven't been for ages. Good morning, Jez. Modern Britain, I have 2 sons. One has graduated with a good law degree. He drives coaches. The other has a degree in sports coaching and development. He works in retail. Well qualified for just above the minimum wage. What a waste of time. Christina, trouble with university students when employment expect to go straight to the top rather than starting at the bottom, looking down at people who didn't want to go to university. Interesting take. Darren, morning, Jez. I was just wondering if there are any foreign countries out there that give us foreign aid, as we are now a third world country. What a great question. My favourite one of the week. Zarina, in my youth, I went to live in Australia until I was allowed to work. My Australian partner had to support me. No benefits, not entitled. Fair dinkum. I'd agree with that. That MP said Andy Burnham achieved a lot. He should have named them. He achieved bugger all. Andy thinks number 10 is a given. Counting chickens comes to mind. Margaret. Keep playing Donald Trump. What a class act. I will. Hi, Jez. Graham the Joiner here. I'll tell you now, we need to remove this government using emergency powers. It's completely insane. Chris is in Audenshaw. I don't know where that is, Audenshaw. Great show. What would you say to bringing in a rule so that you could only vote if you could prove you're paying tax or have been paying tax throughout your working life? Why should the work show be able to dictate what happens to the monies paid in by alarm clock Brits? Wow, true, Jane. What will this country do about the maternity service when all the uninvited young men go out and sow their seed? Oh, nice. Chris from Wales, absolute joke. Britain is broken. These people don't give us money. Why should we be giving aid to them? They will not cut benefits because they will lose votes. Very interesting. Tim's in Suffolk. Morning, Timmy. Please ask Carl, who I like, why are we pandering to those from war-torn countries when they can't prove where they're from? I've no idea. I don't know why any politician does it. To me, it's an absolute given, right? I just, for me, it's really sense, you know. You're taking advantage. We're giving away what we haven't got. Get it back. Paul's from Hull. He says, unfortunately, Carl Turner is not my MP. But if he was, I would vote for him, even though I'm not a Labour voter. Oh, interesting. Let's go to Wrexham. Sam, good morning. You're on Tour Breakfast. How are you?
No, not too bad, thank you. How are you, Jez?
Sorry?
How are you, Jez?
Not too bad, boy. How is it? All right.
No, not too bad. Listen, I was listening to the comments, and these last couple of comments you've made are totally common sense. We should, every one of them should be in Parliament on the front bench. They've all got great ideas to get this country back on its feet. My biggest comment is, it's Corbett phrase that says, we're doomed. literally doomed. If we don't get change this time, we are up the creek without a paddle.
How old are you, Sam?
64 this year.
Yeah, to think. That's what happens at our age, in our 60s. We have to think about it. Have you ever known it this bad? Genuine question.
Definitely not. I've got a business, employ 10 people. This is the calibre we've got now. Is we measured a trailer for somebody and he couldn't read the tape measure. He's 20-year-old.
Really?
Really.
So how has that happened?
I said to him, he missed the 19 metres out. He said it's 60. It was 19 metres, 600 millimetres.
To be honest, I do have to ask the wife to change the light bulbs, but I get your point. I don't know whether it's lack of intelligence, common sense, aspiration, or just a lack of a hard work ethic, but we seem to have developed a generation, and they get really angry when I say this. I don't mean this about everybody, but we have sort of got an entitled generation nowadays, haven't we?
Exactly, and the problem is, and I said to him, I feel sorry for you. I literally feel sorry for you because it's not your fault. I said it's the way you've been brought up. It's not family. It's your schooling. What's the problem? They do not teach you the basics of life.
I disagree with you a little bit there. I do think it starts at home, though. Sorry.
Yes, I know.
We had to go to work, man, or we were in trouble.
Yes, yeah, but this is the ethics which is not there anymore. That's the problem.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. We've got no. I've worked on building sites as a kid to get pocket money. I've just worked. I've never claimed a penny, and I'm coming up to retirement now, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with some of the money? I want it for my kids. My kids won't have a start because I'll be paying all my tax to keep every other bugger who doesn't want to work.
Completely agree with you, mate. God, let's all go to the pub. Anybody over 60 and just be miserable. Thank you, Sam. In Wrexham, good man. 0344 499 1000. Gary. Jez, I thought long and hard about what to say. Basically summarised the country's... Brilliant. Gary and Powers. Lovely. We were big in Wales today, is it? True. I don't know where that came from. Jez, degree used to be a ticket to an interview or starting at the bottom. Once they started charging and telling all they would have the equity outcomes, the country was finished. Have you got the tweet? Because you've written down... Where's the tweet? Oh, right, OK. Just going back to that breaking news story, which is really concerning, of a Belfast attack last night. A man with severe serious injuries having been stabbed in North Belfast, 10:30 last night in the Kinnaid Avenue. A man is in custody. Sorcha Eastwood, keep it on there, please. Member of Parliament for Langan Valley and the Alliance Party has tweeted this. People are waking up this morning to absolutely horrifying news of a savage and barbaric attack in Belfast. I can't get that footage out of my mind. Please do not share. And I'm holding the victim in prayer. The community is in shock, and my thoughts are with those first responders on the scene who courageously pulled the attacker from the victim and to the police who ran straight into it. Let us all offer up our prayers at this time for the victim and their family and those who witnessed this sickening act. It is essential that the police are given time and space to investigate to ensure that justice is done. Let us give them that time and space and pull together as one to support everyone impacted by this horrifying situation. As I said, this is a breaking news story out of Belfast last night. It was... I can't... Just listen to what the woman says. Savage and barbaric. I can't get that footage out of my mind. Please do not share. This is a story that will unfold throughout the day. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Let's say good morning to Carl.
Hi, Jeremy. Carl from Coventry here. Can I just say on this illegal and legal immigration, whether they should get money or not, benefits, then I believe that if they're paid enough in, then they get benefits, but not if they haven't paid anything in. Look at it this way. Brits have to pay so much before we're entitled to pension. So if we have to pay in so much before we're entitled to a pension, then it should be the same for everybody. I've got nothing against them. Like you, it's not about the colour of the skin. It's about how much they're paid into the system. And if they're paid into the system, yes, they should have something out. But if they haven't, nothing. And that's the way it goes, nothing. They know who's paid in and who hasn't. And if somebody hasn't paid enough in, then they shouldn't be able to take anything out. Thank you, Jeremy. Great programme.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 20 minutes to 10 o'clock. We're live across the UK. I keep repeating the breaking news, but it is that story in Belfast. We will, of course, throughout the day on Talk with Julia at 10, with Ian from 1 and Kevin from 4. Keep you updated. Robin Master says, on the welfare benefits discussion, here's an idea. Everyone gets 20 grand per year. If you want to get a job and earn more money, that's fine. If you don't, then do not expect any more handouts. I wouldn't be giving 20 grand a year for doing nothing. I'm a bit old-fashioned. I'm into workhouses. I'm joking, but I do think when we were kids, Mark's looking at me through the screen. We had to go and graft some, didn't we? That's what we had to do. You didn't get something if you couldn't afford it. God, I sound like my dad. Listen, let's say a very good morning to a lady who's been a regular to this show. Just the bravest lady I think I know, mother of victim Barnaby Webber, who was stabbed to death, of course, in the Nottingham attack, along with his female friend and the school caretaker, and that evil Calla Kane, still not in prison. I mean, the whole thing. There was a press conference on Friday at the conclusion of the inquiry, and Emma has been very, very vocal over the weekend. Delighted to have her on the show now. Good morning, sweetheart. How are you?
Morning, I'm all right. It's nice to see you. We had the press conference yesterday.
Oh, was it yesterday? Sorry. Yeah.
Feels like it was a long time ago.
I noticed, I mean, I read and listened and I watched, and I noticed on the back of the Henry Novak thing last week, you were saying in the press conference almost so many agencies were responsible, so many institutions were responsible for letting Barnaby and Grace and the caretaker down. But actually, you know, people standing up and taking responsibility is a rare thing. But you also talked about watching that footage with Novak and the police and all sorts of things. It must strike you that so much is wrong with this country right now.
Yeah, just whilst I was waiting to come on with you, I obviously saw the news you were talking about in Belfast. And, you know, I said yesterday that there are Calla Kanes out there amongst us. I obviously don't know any of the facts for what happened in Belfast, but, you know, we're seeing it at epidemic levels, Jeremy, aren't we? And it has to stop. I mean, it really has to stop. And you have to make so much noise to be listened to in this country, and we are so passive and so reactive to what we were calling for yesterday in our inquiry is not just to wait for the findings of the inquiry, but some direct action and some strong, robust action that needs to be taken straight away.
It's interesting. No, that's the wrong word. It's hugely frustrating to me that when... So I don't want to make it political with you, but last week, of course, Farage jumped up and said there's two-tier policing, which I think millions of people in this country would agree with. He was then accused of using inflammatory language, and that led to riots, and that's all his fault, and it's all about sitting there and having a nice conversation. But a bit like you, this continue. I mean, you lost your son, for Christ's sake. I'll never be able to imagine. My respect for you, you know what I think. I never know what to say, but it strikes me that politicians don't really get it. I think that feathers need to be ruffled and egos need to be trounced and people need to be confronted, because of course there's police incompetence, but if you go into a situation where you're too terrified to act because of the colour of somebody's skin. Calla Kane was released from a mental institution because the nurses thought it was racist to get... I mean, what? Sorry, who taught that to a nurse? Where does that come from, Emma?
I think that it's so deep rooted. It's difficult to try and find a succinct answer, but essentially, I think what my observations are from horrible lived experiences is that there's a fear in this country. There's a fear of stigma. There's a fear of racial bias, and there's a fear of doing the right thing. Actually, there's a fear of sharing information, of using GDPR and patient confidentiality as an excuse, and it's gone so far one way that it's what happens when a tragedy happens like this. It incites hate, it incites rage and fear, and it's also used for political grandstanding, and that can't happen. We need cross-party robust agreement now that the government must address it. They must get on top of it and they get ahead of it. And not, it's not a talk shop. It's not point scoring or finger pointing, and that's why we've said we expect to go into meet in Downing Street with all of the relevant cabinet ministers within the next month, and we won't just be addressing some of the evidence in the inquiry that's come forward, because the evidence doesn't cover it all. The inquiry's terms of reference aren't entirely broad enough. So we've been really, really strong in calling for accountability.
Yep.
People that failed, Jeremy, so gross and so grievous were their failures that they must lose their jobs. They must be held to account.
This is my. I mean, I listened to you about Barnaby, right, and Grace, and and then I think to the grooming gangs inquiry, and I genuinely, at 60 years of age, and I always say it, but I don't understand how. And we always talk about politicians at the highest level, but this could well be local institutions, the NHS, police. But I don't understand how these people believe that they're going to get away with what has happened in terms of your son. I mean, to have this man we seem to. Somebody was telling me today about benefits. We're talking about mental illness. You can just say I've got anxiety or depression and be given 6 months off work and given money. It is utterly ludicrous that the colour of somebody's skin, or we might offend them if we label them or talk to them or do whatever, is allowing stuff like this to happen. And I don't understand why those in power aren't saying, I will move heaven and bloody earth to make sure that common sense returns. We had Badenoch today pledging to drive identity politics out of the police, schools and hospitals. Why has it taken so long? How many tragedies need to happen? You know that more than anybody, right? And it must be so frustrating and annoying and heartbreaking all in one.
It is. It's absolutely infuriating. And what we're seeing here, NHS, for example, we have seen sackings. We've seen 11 sackings and 14 gross misconduct hearings for staff at a hospital where they chose to look at Barney, Grace and Ian's records for no reason. But that is appropriate. People have lost their jobs. But what I'm trying, but illustrate that, Jeremy, alongside the fact that every single agency in Nottingham, without exception, failed on the most incompetent level. Yet until we got to this statutory public inquiry, nobody's been held to account. No chief executive, no chief constable, no senior investigation officer, no responsible clinician, no.
Why do you think, Emma? Is it just the establishment closing ranks?
Yeah, I think I do, and I think that's become the norm. I think that the no blame investigations and reports and reviews that NHS does, it's not witch hunting and trying to destroy people's lives, but I think by holding those to account who are negligent and who fail so grossly in their jobs at every level, and it has to be top down, I believe by holding them to account, that will make change. It will make such a shift.
But that, I mean, obviously you're ridiculous, because that's common sense. I've just written down how brilliantly ridiculous. I mean, I'm joking when I say ridiculous. You know, people who are negligent should lose their jobs, and yet it will be labelled by some as a witch hunt. And yet you can write something. I hate to bring up other cases, but I'm going to. I didn't condone or agree with any part of what Lucy Connolly wrote, but she got 31 months in prison. For something she wrote, a hate crime. We had a teacher at Times Radio upstairs who just happened to write on a WhatsApp something he thought about a teacher to some other parents, and 6 armed police arrived at his house. And yet, you know, I'm also a bit old-fashioned with people like Callaghan. Sorry, there will be people who write to the station and complain. I think there's evil people, and I don't think mental illness covers it. And even if it does, then these people should be locked up forever. I don't understand how we seem to be now, and I don't know how you handle it, making excuses for perpetrators and not victims. And I said it every morning.
Yeah, I'm not making any excuses. Callaghan is there's a miscarriage of justice. He's a murderer.
Yeah, he is.
He's a very mentally unwell man, but he planned his murders. He knew exactly what he was doing. He stalked and targeted his prey, and he had a very long history of his mental health caused him to be dangerous to others. Not everybody with serious mental health issues is. In fact, the majority aren't. But 2 people a week are being murdered, at least in this country, through mental health homicide. And that isn't a small number. It's not an insignificant number.
No.
And hundreds of thousands are victims of serious assault. There are some people that can't be treated in the community. There are some people that must have that robust treatment where they are on community treatment orders, they are on enforced depot medications, because if not, they're a Callaghan. Because he never took meds, he was never concordant with his meds, he never believed he was ill, he lied and he manipulated, and he managed to do that all the way through right the way through until his actual sentencing hearing, I would say.
Isn't it interesting that this... Not interesting, I can never find the right words with you. He lied and he manipulated, but apparently he's not in jail because he's mentally ill. How do you lie and manipulate a situation of your own choosing to suit your own narrative, but apparently you're too mentally ill to face up to the consequences there? And it infuriates me, right? Again, because that is another example of us softening to the wrong sort of person. We won't deal with people on benefits. We won't deal with people who allegedly say that they're mentally ill when they're murderers. We just seem to... Every part... It's like we're out of kilter. It's like we've lost what's important. Can I ask the most important question? Because I've got to know you.
Yeah.
It's a life sentence, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, not even the end of Friday puts the lid on it, does it? Forever.
No, it's not going to. My husband David was talking to someone earlier to say that he said to our legal team on Friday, "Oh, good, you know, is that it now for a while?" And they said, "No, it's just the beginning." And I think we do have to make it our life's mission to continue with this, but we can't. You know, we also do have to have time to look after ourselves. But just a very quick one on. It's not just mental health. The criminal justice system is so out of date.
Yeah.
Is so fractured. Diminished responsibility is used and abused, and the Law Commission recognised that. So we need a government with teeth to address that and realise that Callaghan, whilst mentally unwell, he should not be sat in a hospital as a patient collecting his benefits with an indefinite
Sorry. Now, you see, you just ruined my entire day, which was pretty crap. He's getting benefits.
Yeah. Because he's a patient, he's not a prisoner. There's no penal element. When you go to hospital and you're in hospital, and they say indefinite, and I do think that's very misleading to the public. And I take huge exception to the use of that word because 90% of them are out within about 10 years. And these are people that have murdered, committed the most...
He can never be allowed out. He should be locked in a cell for all eternity, and he's getting benefits. Oh, my God, what is wrong with my country? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's right. That's trying to be addressed. Pat McFadden is trying to address that, but the Royal College of Psychiatrists came out with a very strong statement when that was announced last year to say that's unfair. That's taking away liberty and the rights of these unwell people who have already lost so much already.
Sorry. I know you're just going to nod your head. Taking away the liberty of somebody who killed 3 people and planned it and knew what he did.
He's receiving thousands of pounds a year. Because he's a hospital. There's no recognition of the difference between the hospital system for you know, a mental health crime is still a crime, but when you're in the hospital system, you're being treated by doctors and hospital managers. You're not in the penal system. There's no parole. It's mental health tribunals, which are done behind closed doors. That's why we have to shout and make so much noise, because it has to stop. It has to stop.
Morning, Jez. Please tell Emma the entire system, in my mind, says Carmel in Aberdeenshire, is designed to protect the perpetrators, and it's got to change. And you do sort of feel that when you look at the injustice. I mean, I asked about you because you and the families have just... I mean, it's incredible, and I'm sure it's part of what keeps you going in Barnaby's memory to do what you're doing, and the frustration must be palpable. You won't give this up?
No, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, for as long as it takes. We're not unique, and this type of tragedy and these failures happen in every town and every city in our country, but where we are unique is as a group of us. We have the solidarity. It captured the public imagination, sadly. The media have been amazingly supportive throughout. We did get the statutory inquiry, despite being told repeatedly we'd never get it. So we have to do something with that, right? And I want Barney to be proud of what his dad and I are doing. And I also want Charlie, his younger brother, who's sitting his A-levels this week. How nice is that?
Bless him. How is he? How is he? Is he all right?
Yeah, he's looking forward to the last one on Thursday. Then he's free, in his words. But I want him to realise that we can make a difference and that we can fight back. And we did everything for not just Barney, but for him as well. And that has to be our focus. And Dave and I deserve some peace at some point, but not until accountability happens, the miscarriage of justice is addressed, and proper bloody change happens, not just reactive, passive.
No, real change that makes a difference, change that means something. And, and I'm sure, because I've done enough of this to know that, you know, having that motivation probably keeps you going. But, I mean, I say it every time because, I mean, I think you're incredible. I think Dave and your kid, and I just respect, and you know that this show will always delightfully shout the message from the rooftops, sweetheart.
And we really appreciate it. We really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Give my love to everybody. Emma Webber, thank you so much indeed. Barnaby Webber's mother. The Nottingham family is holding that press conference yesterday. It was after the horrific deaths of Barnaby and Grace and that poor school caretaker by Callacane, who you've just heard exclusively on this show. I can't. It's out. You're going to headbutt the wall. Is sat in a maximum security hospital earning thousands of pounds a year in benefits, despite the fact that he planned and knew exactly what he was doing by murdering those three, because he lied about it. But no, it's OK. He was mentally ill and he didn't take his meds. Go to a break before I headbutt the wall, please.
Varley Callacane was a 32-year-old black man. He murdered 3 white people. Not once in any part of the conversation or reporting was there any racial profiling or even the question raised.
I don't want to drag this boy onto the issues, not onto Henry, and that is something that the family have asked for.
35 years I've been doing this. I've never seen a moment when most of mainstream media and most of mainstream politics was more out of touch with the country than over this issue. Quite extraordinary.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Listen, very quickly, the FIFA World Cup kicks off, of course, next Thursday, and our friends at TalkSport are sending you and a mate. You could go straight to New York City with Adidas, the tournament's main match ball supplier. We'll fly you to England, Panama at the MetLife Stadium. We'll do flights, hotels, tickets, money, spending, all of that. Adidas will throw in the tray under match ball. You'll get boots. This, my friends, is how to enter.
For your chance to win, head to our friends at talksportwin.com or text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close on the 12th of June 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksportwin.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Good luck with that. Right, almost 10 o'clock. Julia Hartley-Brewer, this breaking news story you have further.
I think you'll find if it's on the BBC, this breaking news story, a man has been taken to hospital with serious injuries following a stabbing in North Belfast.
That's not the story.
If any sentence could just totally not tell you what's happened, if you've seen the video, obviously we can't show on air, of